Welcome back to the Bourbon and BS podcast, everyone. Happy Whiskey Wednesday. I'm Steve Crane. Got Nate Hale with me. We've got a live studio audience as well, as hopefully we get some people watching live to join the conversation. If you guys are listening on the audio, or if you're just tuning in after the fact, definitely can join us Wednesdays around 7:30, 8 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. Typically, it's going to be closer to 7:45 or 8 o'clock here in Ohio. So if you guys want to join us, we'd love to have you. Also, guys, share it. That's a big part of this, is sharing this, sharing not only the show, the Facebook page, the YouTube channel, the audio that you're listening to. Share it with friends. Join the Bourbon and BS podcast page like that, and also join the Bourbon and BS community page on Facebook. We're also on Instagram as well, but there's a lot of ways that you guys can reach out to us, and also some of the swag that we have here is going to be on buyjack.com/bourbon and BS. So you can go byjack.com. And the hoodie that I've got on right now is actually a black camo. I don't know how good your picture is, but it's a black camo. It's subtle. We love it. It's got the barrelhead logo we have here. First apparel we have. Nate's got the pour one more, light up another. We'll figure this out together. That's that black with a gray. Again, a little bit more subtle look, but I love that. That is actually a t-shirt, but he's got an undershirt underneath it. And then also I've got the current charity one is the green one here. This is going to be, if you guys can see it there, it's got that Kelly green with the black writing, same writing on it that Nate's got on there. But for that one, every shirt purchase between now and around St. Patrick's Day, we're going to donate $10 to St. Baldrick's Foundation. So great cause. I know we've had several of these ordered, and we appreciate that support. Love doing that, and we got to come up with our next one after that. But yeah, this is going to be something you guys can do. There's several colors, other BS Cigar Company shirts on there as well. Check that out. And also thanks to the Patreon members. There's 3 tiers on there: patreon.com/bourbon and BS podcast, or you can go to Venmo and Venmo at Bourbon and BS to if you guys want us to pick out a bottle, do whatever you guys want with that. Or if you want, you can actually use the Venmo. If you want to put in $10 on the Venmo, we'll cover the taxes on that. But we can do a St. Baldrick's Foundation donation for that if you note it as such. I recommend getting the shirt, but that's just me. I want to thank our sponsors, Tinderbox at Easton. We've got the La Mission from L'Atelier tonight from Tinderbox at Easton in Columbus, Ohio. They've got a big event coming up, Smoking 10 event, March 19th, 2022. It is a huge event. Check out their social media, or give them a call or comment with us. We typically will talk about it from here on out until March 19th. So if you have any questions on that, always shoot us a message. Looking forward to that. Altadis USA, we've got the H. Upman, Nicaragua by AJ Fernandez tonight for part 2. They supply the second cigar each week, as well as continued support. So thank you, Josh Bentley, Paul Waller, and all the kind people at Altadis USA. And also BS Cigar Company, Gold and Silver are available. Gold by Plasencia, Silver by Espinosa and La Zona Factory. Try to breeze through those this week. You know what I mean? Like, we get like sometimes, like, what are we at here? Like 3 minutes. Normally it's like 8 minutes, I feel like. So. I do want to, for those that are in the community that I know personally, update on my mother. She unfortunately fell. So she was actually looking after my dog, Tony, and Tony went one way. She went the other, unfortunately. Hadn't happened any incidents all the way up to that point, but I think she lost her footing, unfortunately, on the grass with the leash, and she fell. She fractured her shoulder, but she is recovering. Hopefully no surgery is needed, but for those that have reached out, appreciate that. Dorothy Crane's a saint, and we need to make sure that she is going to recover 110%. So thank you guys for that. I know a lot of people have reached out to me privately or through the Tinderbox or whatever else. So yeah, have her in your thoughts, prayers if you pray, whatever you believe in. Send love, positivity, whatever. Yeah. Quick update on that. Nate, how are you?
Doing well. It's been a good week.
Cool. Tanya says hi from Qatar.
Yeah.
Ray says good morning, Vietnam. He didn't say the Vietnam part, but surprise. I don't want to do a spoiler alert because we're not quite sure, but Ray Chester is United States bound here in a few weeks.
Yeah, he's gonna be in the week before the 10 event.
Might be the week of the 10 event. Yeah. So yeah, it'll be fun. Hopefully, I'm trying to get him on the show so you guys can see see him and hear his silly English accent and see his face and instead of the comments that we always talk about. So Ray, all the love. Can't wait to have you in the garage, hopefully, and in Columbus, Ohio again, and in the United States of America. So looking forward to that. Tonight we are drinking. It was a gift from one of the community members, one of the listeners. I think he's live now, Jim Johnson. So Jim Johnson's got a lot of things going on these days, and he is sharing the love. He's Corcoran is a huge real estate firm that he is a big part of. Like, this was something out west. Now it's coming back to Columbus, and it's something that he has been working with, and now they're going full blow. So I'm excited to see that. So if you guys are in the not endorsing it, this is not from them, but I'm excited for him. This company, if you guys are in the Midwest or whatever, you're in California, see that Jim Johnson is a big part of this organization now. And he wanted to share with us from some of his successes here. So the Elijah Craig Barrel Proof. This is batch A121, 123.6 proof. So Elijah Craig Barrel Proof. But Jim, thank you very much, and we wish you continued success with this new venture. And anytime that you want to celebrate some milestones with this company, you know what we like. A bottle of bourbon always fits, so we appreciate that and hope to get you on the podcast sometime. He's a big bourbon drinker and a big cigar smoker. You know Jim.
Mm-hmm.
So looking forward to this bottle, and thank you very much. That's the way, like I said, if you want to do Venmo, if you're not local, or if you are local, you can always drop it off at Tinderbox at Easton, one of our sponsors in Columbus, Ohio. And you can get us the bottle. We'll review it. If you want to get on the show with us, you can always request that. And we'd love to have most of you on. I want to say all of you, but most of you. Taking a sip of water here. Had a headache recently today.
A lot of pressure changes in the weather.
A lot of pressure changes.
Because, we've had some very warm weather. And then, like, over the last 24 hours, it's just constantly been getting colder and colder.
Yeah, a little rough. So we're going to start. So we're smoking the La Mission from L'Atelier. We're drinking the Elijah Craig Barrel Proof from Jim Johnson. Thank you very much, Jim. If you want to, Nate, kind of talk to us a little bit about the bottle. Everyone out there, I'm going to do something I encourage you guys to do the same. I'm going to share this feed live to several of the groups as well as my personal page, and then hopefully we can get it out there. So hope you guys can share it and spread the love there.
Yeah, so Elijah Craig is a Heaven Hill product, one of the big players in the bourbon world. Some people might remember that the regular small batch Elijah Craig used to have an age statement on it. It no longer has an age statement, and that's because the demand for it was so high they couldn't meet demand and keep that age-stated product coming out on a consistent basis. So it used to be a 12-year age statement on the small batch. The barrel proof is a 12-year age statement on it. 12
years. It says it right there on the side, right?
So
yeah.
It says it on the side of the bottle.
Mm-hmm.
It has a side label for it. This one is coming in at 123.6 proof, and this is their third in the last 2 years. This is their third barrel proof release.
Okay,
and this is also the hottest in terms of the proof. This is the highest proof of the three.
Do you know what the previous? No, you didn't write that down. Did you?
So
you got it right in front.
The one that came out in September of last year was 120.2. The one that came out in May last year was 118.2. This one's 123.6.
So just creeping up there
a little bit, yeah. And the code that they're using. So you had said that this was batch A121.
Yeah.
So the first letter indicates the order of the release for that year, starting with A.
Okay.
And then the first number represents the month of the release. And then the third and fourth digits indicate the year. So this was January 21.
Okay. Oh, okay. So 121. I got you.
Yeah. So this was January of 21. The others were May 21 and then September 21.
So month and year. I got you.
So this was their first.
So this is a year out, right?
This is a year old.
Okay. Yeah.
And this was their hottest release.
Okay.
So the first one right off the bat, we're going to throw 123 at you.
I got you. I had it backwards
Yeah,
there. So
yeah.
this was okay. I got you. So they're knocking it down, or how's the sequence? I'm sorry.
So it went
the way you said that, I was like,
yeah.
I thought this was like.
I was literally reading that off of their website.
I got you.
So the January 21 release was 123,
mm-hmm.
and then the May release was 118, and then the September release was 120.
So then up and down. I got you.
Yeah.
So not creeping up. I got you now.
Yeah.
Calendars are tough.
Yeah. So this was the first release of the barrel proof. The other ones were then B and C,
Mhm.
and then the numbers corresponding to the month and year that those came out. So B 521, C 921. So
I got you.
Yeah. So like I said, this is I think the only Elijah Craig product now that has an age statement on it, like I mentioned, because their regular small batch no longer does. So the
Right.
barrel proof is the only one that's going back to that. They initially did a barrel proof release. I think it was 2013 or 2014, and then didn't do another one for a while. And then it was last year that they started that program back up again.
Okay.
So,
all right. So for those out there, so I'm now done sharing. Look at all
in
that.
the state of Ohio, this is going to come in at $70.
Okay.
In the state of Ohio.
That's a fair price for what we're dealing with here.
Yeah. I mean, the regular Elijah Craig has always been kind of a great bang for buck whiskey because it's usually been around that $28 to $30 price point.
Mm-hmm.
So this one is significantly higher, but barrel proof, Heaven Hill juice, all that stuff. I mean,
oh,
it's oh,
Heaven Hill juice, right?
Yeah, it's Heaven Hill.
So it lingers. Obviously, it's got a nice long finish.
Mm-hmm.
What were you saying? So we've started a little bit. I know this is maybe not as fun for some of you, but we started taking a sip before we lit up the cigar. So we did that prior to going live, just trying to get a fresher taste on it.
Yeah.
What'd you have on the nose there?
On the nose, for me, it was a caramel apple. Like literally the caramel apple on a stick. Like that's the flavor I got. Because it's that sweetness of the caramel, but there's a fruitiness to it as well. And for me, that fruitiness came across like an apple.
Okay.
You want the mash bill on this? Or
let's hear
it. 78% corn. So it is a high corn mash bill, 12% malted barley, 10% rye. Okay. And I think the fact that it's a barrel proof is why there's so much spice on the finish of this one. I don't think a lot of times we kind of get
just pure heat, right? I mean, that's what you're saying. It's not because of a high rye content.
Exactly. Like a lot of times when we taste a whiskey that has a significant spice note to it, a lot of times it'll be either a high rye content or it's a high proof.
Okay.
Usually if that spice is on the palate, it's the rye. If it's on the finish, it's the proof.
Yeah, I mean the flavor there is a little bit, it doesn't have that. It does have that spice or heat from a rye like you're talking about, but that makes sense because it does have a bit more, like you said. I mean, it's almost like a cinnamon on there, especially on the finish.
Yes, on the finish, absolutely.
Yeah. Which typically is where that rye spice hits me,
Mm-hmm. On the palate. On the palate for me, it's right up front. It's got this very distinct oak characteristic, and then baking spices. Like it's not the pepper kind of spices or cinnamon that we're talking about on the finish. It's more, more like a spice that you might use in cooking or cakes or stuff like that. Those kind of baking spices.
Get what you're saying. We got some comments out there about the age statement. I love Freddie Burt and Jason Williams out there. It's like, Nate, you said Heaven Hill, but I think you were talking about the Elijah Craig small batch. And
the Elijah. So,
but then Jason says 18 and 23 years stated. So
those are the Heaven Hill ones. I was referring specifically to Elijah Craig.
Okay.
Being age stated. The regulars.
I like it though. I like they're paying attention out there, which I like. Appreciate that.
If I said Heaven Hill, Freddie, I misspoke.
Roll back the tape. Let's
Get
see
off
what happens.
my nuts.
No, it's good. Like I said, it's good that you guys are listening, contributing to the conversation. This is it's a nice flavor on this. It is powerful. Got these phrase here on this. It is powerful.
I remember what Jason Williams was talking about.
The Elijah Craig 18.
Yeah,
that makes sense.
That one you can never find, and it's like $200 some.
Yeah. So okay. Well, again, 12 years on this one. It is a bolder flavor. I mean, it's in your face.
It is.
It does have, I don't want to say a whole lot of sweetness, but it is got a little sweet note, like maybe a citrus note in there. And again, that lingering kind of like corn sweetness. Nate's looking at me like I'm an idiot.
No, a lot of times
Really?
when I know you bring up corn sweetness, like a lot of times that like you're referring to something that's very corn heavy.
No, it's not
And
like that.
I know this is not.
No, not like that. It's a lot of these bourbon guys are going to get after me with this. It's kind of almost like it has it's not added. I mean, like a flavor of like an added sweetener to it, kind of like mixed in there.
Okay. What? So like what?
Like, when you add like a artificial sweetener into coffee and stuff like that, I kind of have that little sweetness kind of in like, sensation back here. Like in the back of my palate, I've got a little bit of that sweetness type of a sensation there.
Gotcha.
But it does have that spicier cinnamon or whatever to me finish.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's why we were kind of playing a joke on one of the members of our studio audience. They came out of the house with a glass before we went live, and I was like grabbing the bottle, I was like, "Yep, smooth, smooth, it's good."
It's got a bit of a boldness to it.
It is bold.
It's nice. Do you like Elijah Craig products typically?
I do. I other than this one, the only other Elijah Craig I've had is just the regular small batch. I've not had.
You haven't had the rye?
Oh no, the
straight rye.
Yeah, the rye. I love the rye. I love the Elijah Craig rye.
I think it's great.
That is a fantastic bang for buck bottle.
Yeah,
because I really do enjoy rye, you know that, and that one is a very reasonably priced rye because it's coming in. I've seen it at different prices at different stores. I mean, $28, $31, somewhere in that range, and no, it's a good sipper.
Elijah Craig, small batch and straight rye. I mean, they're good kind of staple bottles. I think you're getting what you pay for sure. They don't really, there's a solid drinker. This one coming in at around $80. I mean, it does stand up $70, $69.99.
Yep.
It does stand up to that kind of price point, I think, for sure. Again, I mean, it's a sipper.
Yeah,
it's a sipper. It's not.
Well, I mean, I just had you try over the weekend that barrel proof rye that I had.
Yeah,
and that was 127.4. I mean, so that was fairly close to this one.
Yeah.
And that was a $75 bottle. I mean, so they're both barrel proof products. That rye is obviously probably not going to be 12 years. Although it was a Canadian rye. Who knows? It might be. I mean, I think nowadays, any barrel proofs really on the market, you're going to be looking around that price point. We know our friends at Watershed, all their barrel proofs are $60.
Yeah. Which I'm trying to get Dino Tripodis back on. He just did the Whiskey Business podcast. Just did one.
I want to run to the liquor I want to run to the bottle shop at Watershed and try to get one.
Yeah. Well, that's what I'm going to try to do. Also, is grab one of those. Get him on here. I just added a dash of water to it. In fact, I think it's hard to do hard to do out of a glass like I'm drinking out of the water. So
you want to use the cap for my water bottle?
No, it's already done. It's already in there. For better or worse, need to get one of those water droppers.
I know.
I'm gonna let that open up a little bit.
I've been meaning to look into that. It is on my list.
So it takes away, and again, I didn't really measure my water in that. Do not judge me if you're watching. I'm not trying to load up my glass. I'm trying to get that ratio. I don't want. It'll be my pour for a while.
Yeah, and normally
someone time me.
Yeah, normally you and I are not ones to put water in our whiskeys, but
this one I wanted to.
Yeah, because it's 123.
It's not. Yeah, it's not bad. It's just it's a lot. It's a lot. I mean, that's where I'm proofing it down just a little bit.
All right, over there, buddy. Is it coming in a little hot for you?
Why your ass?
Most people say hair on your chest. Yeah.
Dustin, no, this is not batch A122. It's 121.
It's A121,
which I think is all there is, right? That's all.
Yeah, there's only 3.
Okay.
Yeah.
A121.
There's A121, B521, C921.
So with the water in there, it is a bit more approachable, I think. You added a little bit. You lose a little bit. I've still got that kind of cinnamon finish for me. I mean, it's still got that at the end, but on the first part of the sip, it's not. It's not as in your face. What do you think? We got Sean here in the garage wants to say something. He's sipping on it as well.
It's almost like when you drink it. To me, I feel like some of them like just the heat comes out my nose, almost like a peppery retrohale feel through my nose. But yeah, the water definitely helped it a little bit. But yeah, it's got a lot of.
For me, on the water kind of took away that sweetness on the nose. Like I said earlier, I'd gotten that caramel apple on the nose. The water took that away.
So I'm saying when I drink it.
No, I know. I'm just going through the whole thing.
Yeah. But yeah, definitely a lot of caramel.
Pinky zone
on the nose for sure.
See this pinky?
Just trying to get my eyes from tearing up.
No, I'm
trying. You want to talk about it? You're
trying not to fist the glass.
Jesus, pinky up to fisting.
Oh, I get it now. Okay.
Yeah, so I'm talking about like my head and everything, the sinuses. Like this is, it's moving something up there. You're talking about like it's coming out your nose, like I don't know what's going on, like about right here in my face, but I think this all has something to do with it, or the propane, or something like that. But I mean,
I think after adding the water, I prefer this neat without the water.
How so? Why is that?
Because the flavors.
In what way?
The flavors that I got before adding the water, like, were really enjoyable, very pronounced.
Yeah.
And I think with the water, like, there's still a lot of flavor there, but it's all now kind of blended and mixed together, and nothing stands out as much as
I got
before.
you. I got you. So that's I get what you're saying. I understand as far as trying something new. And for some people out there that like this, I mean, it's neat is the way to go first.
Yeah.
If I'm going to be sipping on this, I would, again, maybe mess with it a little bit more methodically, where it's going to be, you do get a dropper, right? And you pour whatever, a 2-finger, 3-finger pour, and then drop a 1 drop of water, maybe 2, and that's it. Just kind of take a little bit of the bite off for me on this one. I think it's good. But I do think, Sean, you were saying this is like, I agree. This is like more of a casual, I can have a glass or 2 of this while I'm relaxing, with this every time neat. When I was taking a sip of it, it was like, oh, I'm here. I'm awake. You know what I mean? Like, no matter what you're doing, you're going to take a sip of it. And you're like, oh, no, I'm drinking whiskey. That's all I'm doing. You know what I mean? Like, if you're just like kind of like sitting there, like reading a book, or like smoking a cigar, or like, messing around on your phone, watching something on TV, or having even a conversation with someone. Right. Yeah. But I mean, it's like, even if you're having like a conversation, like say like with like your significant other or whatever, and you're like, you take a sip of this, and I just feel like, oh, all right, wait, what was that last part? Like, I just took a sip of my drink. I just had a restart. I mean, it's not that it's the hottest thing or most, the highest proof that we've had on the show or before, but it's just it's a bit of a punch in your throat there.
Yeah.
And not in a bad way. It's not harsh or anything like that. But I mean, it's in your face.
Yeah. This is a good, cold winter's day whiskey.
Which is kind of picking the La Mission today. Yeah, that's kind of what I was thinking, as we do a little bit higher proof.
Yeah.
We're both reading comments.
Well,
here.
Yeah, because Dustin
good for the airtime.
I'm sorry, Dustin was asking which one this was. So I didn't know if they reset the letters each year. So like last year they did 3, so there was an A, B, and a C, and then the numbers correlated to the month and year. I didn't know if they were doing the letters like it resets each year, or it just continues like.
Well, based on the code, it's saying it'd be January 2022. I mean, so that's what 122, right?
Which would be if it was released last month.
Correct.
Yeah.
So.
But I was asking if it would be A, because they reset the letters each year.
Tough to say.
So like if they did 3 expressions each year, you have just an A, B, C, or if they're just going to we're just going to go through the whole freaking alphabet until we have to start over.
They're all A something. The first ones A.
Well, yeah. So last year was the first year. So you had A 121, then you had B
maybe
521 because that came out in May.
Yeah, and
then you had C 921 because that came out in September. So it was the 9th month. So the first expression was
so this
A.
would be D 122.
That's what I was
I got
asking.
it.
I didn't know if they reset the numbers or the letters each year.
I feel like we sound dumb talking like this. It's like
We're just throwing out
SAT.
numbers and letters, and
It's like
Omaha.
A121 is to January 21.
Are we playing bingo? Like,
No. All right. We are all now dumber. So the La Mission. We'll get back to the whiskey here. Some of our thoughts more on that. But the La Mission, so L'Atelier is going to be a 3 times a year, A, B, then C, he says.
Thank you, Austin.
Austin. This guy. Check him out also. I know they done them since at least 2019, he says. Okay. Austin has I'm sorry, but he's got a great page out there, Bourbon Collective. I don't know if they're accepting new people in that group, but they've got some cool things going on. A lot of knowledge in that group as well. Austin's a member of the Bourbon and BS community as well. Donated a bottle before. So, yeah, thank you, Austin. He's always a wealth of knowledge as well out there.
Yeah, I've hung out and drank with him a couple times.
Boy, you say it like they're stories. La Mission.
It was after we were shooting guns.
All right. Hopefully out of range.
And had cigars. Yes, it was.
So L'Atelier it's interesting on this one because when you read about it now, first of all, this cigar in a different size than 1959, which is a Robusto. This is a little bit larger than that. This is the 1989 size, and you'll go over why it's called that here in just a second. But L'Atelier, when it first came out, it didn't say anything. Like, so now when you look at it now, I'll start where we're at now and then go kind of like a flashback movie here. Now it's got Tatuaje all over it. It's got the Tatuaje logo. It's got, even on the SKU sticker, it says Tatuaje. It doesn't say it on the band or the cigar itself, but it was kind of like this smaller project that was going on that if you were in the industry, you knew that Pete Johnson and Tatuaje was behind it a little bit, but the original literature when this was out in the early to mid 2010s, right? I don't know exactly when the company was founded, but I believe this cigar came out around 2015. And so L'Atelier had hit the market. Now, like I said, it's got Pete Johnson, and even like Cigar Aficionado had this number 4 cigar, I believe it was, of 2020. So this one got some recent praise. I've always liked this cigar when it came out. But L'Atelier, as a background there, is that it is 3 guys. Dan Welsh, KC Johnson, who's Pete Johnson's brother, and Casper, I think his last name is Johnson as well, but not related. Super not confusing. Had the opportunity to meet Casey. Dan is actually a local guy here in Columbus, Ohio. He had a great connection with Pete Johnson. He's got an online presence with New Havana Cigars, NHC, and that was kind of where I think some of this project started, was with that. L'Atelier Surrogates was another line from them. That's all under the L'Atelier. And originally, when this stuff came out, it was all the 3 guys. Pete was not really involved in the literature or the story behind this. It was just Dan Welsh, Casey Johnson, and Casper Johnson. We should probably look that up. I think that's his last name. I'm sorry, Casper. But we had a good relationship with those guys for a little while there, and they're very busy. I know they're out west a lot, out east a lot. But yeah, so great company. Always liked their stuff. But now, like I said, I think what really surged it forward was putting the Tatuaje brand recognition behind it and making this like an arm of that is the impression that I have. So kudos to you guys for doing that. Big fan of Dan Welsh. Haven't seen him in a long time. Dan, if you listen to the show, hope you do make it back over to the Tinderbox at Easton and come see us again. But this one was, they really punched this up as far as the branding of L'Atelier. They rebanded some stuff a while back, and around that time, this was before I think they did that. And this La Mission band and also artwork is just, it is extremely elegant.
Yeah.
The La Mission, the only thing that was interesting is that you brought it up, is that why is this called the La Mission and why is it called the 1989? Nate?
So if anyone knows anything about Pete Johnson, he loves wine. Yeah. He's a big wine enthusiast,
Bordeaux,
especially Bordeaux's.
Big whiskey drinker too. Good friends with Willett.
Yeah. Oh yeah, he loves Willett. So the La Mission is inspired by a Bordeaux winery called Chateau La Mission. And in 1989, that winery received 100-point rating from Robert Parker. So that's the significance behind why this. So like with the sizes, they name them after years and
when they had the high ratings.
Yeah, there's a significance. So 1989 refers to the time that the winery that this cigar is named after received a 100-point rating.
Wow. So this is coming out of the My Father factory, like all of Tatuaje, and the L'Atelier line is coming out of, and surrogates as well under the L'Atelier name. This is going to be a San Andres wrapper over Nicaraguan filler and binder. Again, the marketing behind this, or as far as the branding behind this, you got on the back of the band, you've got the L'Atelier leaf. As you go around it, you've got, again, a very elegant, just overall artwork. It's almost looking like crowns on the top and bottom, but I know they're not that. It's just kind of like just very ornate detail there with some leaves as well.
Almost like some Greek columns with that spiral out.
Yeah. And so you got Nicaragua on one side and Nicaragua on the other side. And you got the M, which is another, again, very elegant M with La Mission, L'Atelier on there as well. So, and that's on the box as well. It's a nice black box. It's got this logo on it. It was a sticker, but it's a nice looking sticker on the box.
You know what L'Atelier means?
Go ahead.
French for the workshop.
The workshop. I did not know that.
Although, what's funny, if you look the brand up on Cigar Aficionado, they mention Pete Johnson, and that's it.
So that's kind of my point. Is that I'm trying to, for once, be a little PC on this. Don't get scared. I think that I think it's cool that they have Pete, but it's sad to see that you don't see the names Casey, Dan, and Casper, where the original story was all about those three guys, and then a company like Cigar Aficionado to punch it up and to almost justify their rating. I don't know if it was on the L'Atelier side that they made the decision to put Pete as the forefront again to hopefully push the business, which would be smart. I mean, he's got a name in the industry, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, I can see that. But again, I think that, again, a company like Cigar Aficionado, you give something a number 4 cigar of the year in 2020, and all you do is you talk about Pete Johnson. I think that's poor. I don't know, journalism. It's poor magazine work there. I mean, you should definitely have a little bit more of the foundation of that cigar company.
So I did find an article from.
Were you listening at all, or no?
Yes.
Okay, cool.
I did find an article.
Is anyone out there?
I did find an article from 2016 that it mentions Pete and his brother KC. Yeah. That's like I had to scroll.
2016.
Yeah, I had to scroll for that one.
No mention of Pete in that article, I bet.
Co-founder
Pete
with his brother Pete Johnson.
Okay. So interesting how things change and how the media, no matter what it is, how they'll try to present it. But again, that could have been the call of L'Atelier and the guys behind it, is like, hey, we're still going to be on it, through like events and social media and like actual function of the company. But if we're going to have any real like ground to stand on here, we need to use the name of Pete Johnson, which again,
I get
smart
that,
business move.
Because if it comes out there, like you got a guy named Casper and Dan Welsh, like, okay, everyone's going, who are these guys? But people know the name Pete Johnson because of his success with Tatuaje.
It carries cigars. More weight.
Yeah.
But anyways, I mean, and I don't know. That's my opinion. I think you should, stick to your roots on that. Especially if you do have that, now flip it back and start, Pete is a co-founder. Let's bring the other people into it. You know what I mean? I mean, they're not just reps. So
yeah.
What do you think of the cigar, Nate?
I actually like this cigar. To me, it comes across, I would say medium body, but I was actually surprised with how well this holds up to this barrel proof whiskey. Like, this cigar has got a lot of flavor to it, and it's holding up nicely to a 123 proof whiskey.
Yeah. I think I agree. I don't agree on the fact that you think it's medium. I think it's more medium to full. I think it's a little bit bolder smoke. Definitely flavor wise, it's got a lot of flavor. I can see. All right, that's Siri. You're having trouble hearing me because I'm not talking to you. I think that with this being named after a winery this would be, what kind of red wine do you think this would go with? Because it'd definitely be a red
Bordeaux.
wine. A Bordeaux, obviously. But, I think it would go well with a cab.
Okay. Cab or Pinot?
Hmm.
Or Malbec?
Malbec. Yeah, that'd be good. A little bit of spice there.
Yeah. Yeah, I get this, kind of peppery spice, which is, very common with any of the tobacco coming out of my father's cigar or out of Nicaragua. But I also get this kind of graham cracker to it as well.
I got no graham cracker.
Okay.
What kind of graham crackers do you eat?
It's been a long time.
Sean, do you get graham cracker off of this? You say it's been a long time you've had since you had graham cracker?
I still know what it fucking tastes like.
Apparently not. Go, why don't you pick up the mic there, Sean?
Oh, Jesus.
I was just kidding.
It's like a s'mores or something. I don't know.
It's not.
I'm kidding.
I don't get any malo.
No, I get the caramel, some butterscotch on the nose and on the flavor, kind of on when I drink it too.
Are we talking about the whiskey or the cigar?
Sorry, I'm trying to work and listen at the same time. I'm still on call for work, so I apologize. You're going to talk about cigar?
We're on the cigar now.
Oh shit!
Do you taste that? Because then that would be a little bit more like graham cracker. Maybe I'm off here, and I'm not saying you can't taste graham cracker. I'm sorry if that was rude. I did not mean that. On the cigar, Sean, I didn't mean to take you away from work.
No, it's fine.
They listened a couple weeks ago.
Last
week.
They're not. Yeah, it's fine. It's something I got to deal with real quick.
Cool. Hopefully it's not a plane in the air.
That's one that will be soon.
Can you just, all right, then your thought.
You keep interrupting me. All right. So I don't think graham cracker as much. On the retro, I get a very like almost flowery flavor. Like it's like floral, but it's kind of a sweeter. It's hard to explain, but
okay.
Not much graham cracker though in the mouth.
Sorry. All right, go back to work.
Okay.
Thanks.
Thank you, Austin. Austin said Teddy Grahams.
for those up in the air right now, if you're listening, Godspeed.
Oh shit, wrong airport.
It's not funny. Sean Anderson's. All right, we're not joking about this. He says Steve Crane for the crash. No.
Cool.
Stop, everyone. He's not. I didn't make him talk.
You did put him on spot.
He can say no. He's a grown man. I like this cigar. It's very rich. I don't get the graham cracker. I mean, all joking aside, I don't get that. On the retro, the retro takes over a bit on this one. For those that retro hail again, for those that don't,
quite a bit of spice on the retro.
Yeah, it's got pepper and spice on that retro hail for sure, and that actually is overwhelming on me for the palate. It's definitely overwhelming on that. It's hard too drinking. I'll say this: the retro hail does stand up to the whiskey. But when I go just to smoke on the palate without doing a retro hail, I don't get as much flavor from it. And maybe maybe it's because of the whiskey there. Because normally I don't get like the graham cracker, but I get a nice
going whiskey,
rich woodiness to it.
Going whiskey, then cigar, it brings out more of the spice in the cigar. So, but I mean, it's an enjoyable cigar. What does this size retail for?
It's around 11.
Around 11? Okay.
Yeah. I don't know what the suggested retail, but at least at our shop, at least last we had it was before the most recent price increase, but around 11.
Okay.
Yeah, not bad.
Well, I mean, and it's a Toro.
11, 12.
Yeah, that's going to be right there in the ballpark with the regular Tatuaje brown labels.
Yeah.
So, and we didn't talk about this. This is kind of a very soft square box press.
It is.
I mean, it's got round. It's definitely a box press, but it's very rounded on the corners.
It is. It's like that natural, almost like I'm coming out the same factory, like a Florida Santilla is.
Yeah.
It's kind of got a similar shape to it. A little bit harder corners, at least on mine.
Yeah, I think this one's a little bit more square. The La Santillas is a little bit more rectangular. Yeah, this is like a true box press.
Soft box press.
Yeah. Because you threw the cello away. What's the size on the Toro?
Let's see if I can find it, but it is. Oh, Jesus. It's all the way over there. Do you have your cello, Sean? Do you have your cello?
Let me see if I can bring it back
The
up.
cellophane on that cigar? No.
Yeah. Wait.
It's all right.
5 5/8 by 54.
All right. It's okay. You got it.
So 5 5/8 by 54, which it's very specific. 5 5/8, like, because a lot
It makes you wonder why they do a mold that size.
Yeah, because traditionally a Toro is going to be a 6 by 50.
Mm-hmm.
So this is a little shorter, but also a little fatter.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, you're probably looking at the same amount of smoke time as a traditional Toro, but like 5 5/8, like, why not 5 1/2?
Well, we talked about it with Josh Bentley the last couple of weeks. Yeah, we had him on when we were doing the, those sizes with that Adrian Rare collection like a month ago, whatever it was, and then with this more recent Monte Cristo Espada signature where it's doing a 55 ring gauge.
Yeah.
So I don't know the significance behind that or why some of these factories are doing these little bits. I look at like Fuente with Ashtons. I mean, they've got like in some of their lines they've got 8, 9 sizes. And they're all just a hair off, I think about the Ashton VSG that's got like the Pegasus and the Robusto, and they're just a hair off. And they're both Vitolas for whatever reason.
Did you talk at all about the makeup of this cigar?
Yeah, San Andreas over Nicaraguan. Yeah, we talked about that. All the information coming through here. All right, here we go. Let's do the ratings. It has a little bit more whiskey. Before we do that, have you had any good whiskeys lately other than, what we're having tonight? Have you had any that have been standing out? Newer bottles? You talked about the one that you and Jim Johnson, who actually donated this bottle.
Yeah, I just had that Alberta Premium.
Mm-hmm.
It's a cask strength Canadian rye.
Yeah.
That's 127.4. That's been a really enjoyable bottle. Besides that, I think I've been drinking the Marianne Eves pick for Watershed.
I had a glass of that the other night.
Yeah, that's a tasty bottle.
Yeah.
That is a very tasty bottle. I also had a pour over the weekend. I still have that Three Boy Farms rye that Sean Anderson brought when he was here. I still have that.
Shocking that you still have some of that.
It's good, and I don't want it to go away. But every now and then I have a glass.
It's nice.
But like typically when I have that, that's my first glass of the night.
Nice. Nice.
I think in the last month I've gone through 2 bottles of Buffalo Trace that I had in my cabinet.
Yeah, I can't get that.
Well, I've had those bottles. Well, one of the bottles I've had for a while. The other one was a gift from the owner of the tinderbox.
That's right.
Last year.
Nice. Nice. Guys, throw up on there. Austin says, damn good bottle, the Marianne Eves.
Yeah.
If you guys haven't already, if you wherever you're at, but especially in this local area in Columbus, Ohio, they've got it's live now, right? The Marianne Eves.
I think.
No, that's not live now. The High Bank one is.
The High Bank goes on sale Friday.
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 No, the Marianne Eves lottery is live right now. Because I asked if you entered it.
Is that? I thought that lottery closed. Austin probably knows.
Well, it was. I don't know.
But they draw the winners for that in March.
Okay, so anyways, yeah. So Marianne Eves, who we do have a bottle that I assume she had her hands on, the Restoration rye, single was barrel proof.
Yeah, so we've already done the Restoration rye. This one is the barrel proof rye.
Yeah, that I picked up down in Nashville.
Yeah.
But yeah, Marianne Eves put on some great stuff. Austin says, good bottle. Let us know, you guys, what you're drinking on tonight as well, or if you want us to try to find a bottle. Again, you guys can help support us by either donating a bottle, being on the podcast while we drink it, coming in the garage if you don't want to do that, or there's also the Venmo at Bourbon and BS, or the Patreon page, patreon.com/Bourbon and BS. So now the rating time, the whiskey, cigar, and pairing. Sean, I assume you're working, right? You don't want to.
Yeah, sorry, man.
It's all right. Got, lives depending on you. Nate, how about you? All right, so let's do this. He's commenting back. Who are you commenting back to here?
Sean Anderson.
Okay, Sean Anderson. All right. Sold out. Lottery is currently open for Black Label. Yeah,
Yeah.
Austin. So yeah, real quick. The Marianne Eves. Yes, that bottle, single barrel of the Marianne Eves is sold out. Correct. Lottery is currently open. That's what I was thinking.
It sold out in less than 2 days, and there were 70 bottles of it.
Mm-hmm.
And thanks to a mutual contact you and I have,
all right, yeah, we call her the Whiskey Fairy. Maybe.
Yeah, you and I were able to get a bottle,
secure a bottle each. All right, so the whiskey. Without further ado, let's go here. I think we're kind of scattered a little bit, talking about whiskey, looking up at the shelf, getting excited about future bottles.
It's also just the two of us.
Yeah, it's just the two of us. Don't sing it. So out of 10, if you guys are listening for the first time, we do out of 10 ratings, 10 being the best for the whiskey, 10 out of 10, or out of 10 for the cigar, and out of 10 for the pairing. And Nate, go ahead.
So on the whiskey, I'm gonna give the whiskey an 8. I think it's a very enjoyable bottle. I think it's worth a $70 price point. It has great notes on the nose, great flavor on the palate.
See what you wrote down
there.
What was your rating?
8.
8. All right.
I'm giving the whiskey an 8. I'm also going to give the cigar an 8 as well. It's very enjoyable smoke. I do like the flavor. For some reason, and it's all psychological, it has nothing to do with the cigar. For some reason, when this is on the shelf next to the Tatuajes, I always find myself wanting to grab a Tatuaje over this one. Even though this is a very good cigar, it's coming out of my father factory just like the Tatuajes. For some reason, psychologically, I want to smoke a Tatuaje over a L'Atelier.
I got it.
And, I couldn't explain why that is, briefly, but it's definitely a good cigar. It's not something that I've gone back to on a regular basis. I have smoked this when they've been available at the tinderbox.
Yeah.
But again, with working in a retail space that's got like 600 cigars, I try not to smoke the same cigars all the time. I try and, obviously there's going to be some cigars I avoid, but I try and smoke as many different blends as I can.
I got you.
And then I smoke a shit ton of BS golds.
All right. Back to the ratings. Let's stay on point.
The pairing, I'm going to give the pairing a 7.
Why is that? Lower than both the cigar and the whiskey on its own.
Yeah. So there are aspects of this cigar that does hold up to the proof of this whiskey, especially if you go from cigar to the whiskey. Going whiskey cigar, it brings out more spice in the cigar, and that kind of hides some of the other flavors that are going on with the cigar. So the whiskey doesn't completely drown out the cigar, but it does overpower some of those notes in it.
Okay. So
like with this cigar, I'd be okay with something more like that 90 to 100, maybe 110 proof, depending on where it's coming from.
Was it? Oh, yeah. I thought you were
sorry
mid talk and then you go down. Okay. Whiskey, I'm going to give it an 8.5. I think this is a great bottle. Jim, thank you again, Jim Johnson, part of the community, for donating this. It's not, 8.5 is not bad. I don't know what he's expecting. I know he enjoys it. He also enjoys a lot of different bottles of whiskey that he gets his hands on. He's definitely an enthusiast. I'd say 8.5 on the bottle, only because, again, it's very good. But again, this is when you're drinking it. I feel like it is an attention grabber. Again, as I said earlier, if you guys are just tuning in, but as a summary, it's like when you take a sip of it, it's like that's the focus. It almost demands attention, which can be a good thing. But given your scenario when you're drinking it, it could be a kind of a distraction almost to, it's not just enjoying. Like this is a purely objective, like I want to try this, or I'm going to be sitting down to have just a glass of whiskey, nothing else. So 8.5, it's not like an everyday drinker. It could be more of a nightcap. It could be one that I revisit. If it was sitting in my bar, I'm like, I haven't had the Elijah Craig Barrel Proof, and I know I like that, and I want to try something again. Kind of like what you were talking about with like the cigar a little bit.
Yeah, this is not the kind of bottle that I'd want to sit there and like kill over the course of a week.
Yeah, we'll just do it in one night. No, we can switch to something else. So
There were multiple of us drinking. Not just
I know. So yeah, 8.5. The cigar, probably 8.5 as well. I like this cigar a lot. I get what you're saying about comparing it to some Tatuajes compared to some. I really like L'Atelier as a company. This one especially, and then I would say the Surrogates line. I like the L'Atelier and L'Atelier Maduro, the two that I've had there from like the actual L'Atelier name.
Where it's got the leaf on the band.
It's got this, that's on the back of your band there. That leaf.
Yeah.
They're good. They're really good cigars. I really like the Surrogates Bone Crusher. I like the Animal Cracker. I like
Tramp Stamp.
That was okay. Yeah. But this one came out
Crystal
and I was really
Baller.
pleased with this cigar. And I think that again, it's just a very rich cigar. It's not one of those San Andres Nicaraguan combos that are going to really dry you out, which sometimes that does happen. This one doesn't do that. It's got a clean finish, but it's very peppery on the retrohale that almost really it grabs your attention, this cigar. So the two of them grabbing your attention, I give the pairing an 8. I think that the pairing is good. I don't know what would go better with the bottle or what would go better with this cigar. So that's where it's like it's tough. These are some powerful flavor profiles and drinking and smoking experiences that together there it's I'm sure we could come across some things that would probably pair maybe a little bit better, like push you up in that 9.5 range. But this being an 8, I think it's a good pairing. I mean, This is something that again, on a cold night, sitting around a fire or as a nightcap, after a dinner and everything else, you know what I mean? You're just kind of sitting there chatting, reflecting, doing the two together. And I will say I'm still sipping because I did pour a little heavier on that second one because I put a little bit of water in there. But sipping on it with a little bit of water made it a little bit more enjoyable. When I'm done with this, I'm going to do a little bit more with just that and see now that my palate's a little more acclimated if I'm going to enjoy it neat by itself again.
I think it's easier to pair a whiskey to this cigar than would be to try and pair a cigar to this whiskey because I think barrel proof whiskeys are kind of hard to get a good pairing on.
Yeah.
Because they tend to be so intense and so bold.
That's kind of my point. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, because we've had times like that first year where we had a super high proof whiskey at 129 and then a very full bodied cigar.
Right.
Both of those by themselves were fantastic, but together it was just too much.
Yeah. And I don't think this one's too much as a pairing, as I stated, but I just think that it's, there could be a better pairing.
Yes.
They're both very good on their own and together they're good. It could be, it's not like a go-to pairing. This is not one that I'd say, hey, you guys have to try. If you get your hands on a bottle of Elijah Craig barrel proof, you got to grab, a L'Atelier La Mission. That's not what I'm saying, which sometimes we do come across that. With that, I do want to wish you guys a happy Whiskey Wednesday. This has been the part 1 of episode 209. Thank you, everyone, on patreon.com/bourbonbs podcast. You guys make this thing go. And also Venmo, you guys can shoot us some at Bourbon and BS if you want us to grab a bottle or just to contribute a one-time donation or contribution. Also, thanks to Tinderbox at Easton, Columbus, Ohio. Guys, check them out. Smoking 10 event, number 9, 2022, March 19th, Saturday. We're going to be in the tent, and we're going to have over 10 companies there. There's general admission tickets available. Also, a handful of VIPs still available. I hope by the time we get live next week, we will not have any more VIPs available. So get your hands on them now and join us on March 19th and in the tent. Altadis USA, we're going to be smoking the H. Upman Nicaragua by AJ Fernandez in part 2. And thank you to Josh and Paul Waller and everyone else that's contributed over the last 4 years to this show. And we appreciate that support. Be a Cigar Company also available through Tinderbox at Easton and a handful of other accounts. And buyjack.com/bourbonbs for a hoodie like mine, shirt like Nate's, or the charity shirt, the green one here. This is going to go towards St. Baldrick's Foundation. So if you guys are looking for a sweet green shirt for Patty's Day, this is the one. This is the one because it also goes to St. Baldrick's Foundation. So we appreciate that support, and they do too. I'm still trying to link up with them. By that, I mean I need to try to link up with them. Guys, thank you very much. Happy Whiskey Wednesday. Stay tuned if you're listening to the live feed or you're watching the video. Stay tuned for part 2. It's going to be broaden your horizons for the topic, and that's where we go beyond the BS. If you're listening on the audio, just click over to part 2. Guys, thank you very much. We're going to have a quick intermission on the live feed. Cheers. Have a wonderful week. Stay warm. Stay safe. Man, Tony's going after it tonight, man. Feel bad.
No one's gone inside.
No, I know. I think you can just hear us.
Yeah, so that's my first pour after adding the water, and it's that boldness really comes back.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sipping on this right now, and it's still as bold. Like as I'm, I added more whiskey trying to create that ratio a little bit better. Guys, what are you guys drinking out there? What are you smoking? I know we had Sean. You said you're drinking a bottle of 4 Gate Rye, and you can't make up his mind yet. I don't know. Sean Anderson says, so basically, Steve Crane, I'm reading this live here. So basically, Steve Crane is saying this is the woman of whiskey bottles. Sean, I'm going to need some clarification on that. I don't know if that 4 Gate Rye is getting to you or what. Oh, those texts. That's why he's barking, apparently.
Ah.
Funny. All right. Sean, how's everything going at work? Just checking in.
Ooh.
Everyone all right?
Everybody's good. Just trying to do some logistics right now.
All right, man. Go logistic away.
So Sean said...
Kick the shit out of those logistics.
Yeah, so Sean explained what he meant by his comment that this bottle demands attention.
Yeah, I saw
Like
that.
a-
No,
like a
that,
woman.
yeah, that makes sense. Makes sense. Austin's drinking 1910 out there. That's fantastic. Love that
my
bottle.
favorite.
Yeah,
Old
grab
Forester
another one of
Pro.
those.
Yeah. Which and you and I have talked about because lately we've been doing like some barrel proofs, some
Whew.
picks,
Yeah.
like some harder to get stuff. But you and I have talked about like doing some more common bottles coming up. And
We need to.
yeah, I think it'd
It's
be cool.
not as cool or like, whatever.
I know, but it's still bourbon. It's still out there, and I mean, we should do it. Like,
yeah.
I think we should just start, have a little run where you and I go to the store and we just pick stuff off the bottom shelf that we haven't done, and like, hey, this might not be great, but it's bourbon, and we're gonna review and rate it. So here it is.
Yeah.
It might not be the greatest thing, but that's okay.
I don't know if any of you guys out there heard of Maker's Mark. We're going to review Maker's Mark tonight. It's up and comer.
I'm pretty sure we've done a few I think the last Maker's Mark we did was when we had Pete Scally on and we did cask strength.
Yeah. Pete's doing well. I don't know if you watch this stuff. Just a quick couple of intermission bullshit here. Did y'all like Statesman? Sean says, I do like Statesman from Old Forester. I like the whole Whiskey Row collection. I do like the Statesman as well. I thought that was very good. Speaking of which, I did watch the new Kingsman.
I did too. Yeah, we watched that last night.
It is good. It's the first one. So I went back afterwards and started watching the original Secret Service, the first one. That's the best one still to my like. The second one was good. Bringing in the Statesman, it was fun. A little more with Julianne Moore, like that whole thing. It's a little more like absurd. So it kind of, and then this one kind of goes back, but it's cool. It's a different time period, but it's fun.
Austin's reading my mind out there. That was one of the ones.
We're going to be a benchmark number 8 night.
Yeah.
What's that?
So benchmark number 8 is a bottom shelf bourbon, and if I remember correctly, it's actually made by Buffalo Trace.
Let's do it. He'll sponsor it. All right, Austin, you got to come back to the garage though, bud.
Since you mentioned Dino, when I went to back when a couple years ago before COVID, when Dino was doing the improv shows at a local comedy club, and I had actually won tickets to one of those. The loser got like some crappy vinyl, and the winner got a bottle of benchmark number 8.
Hey, man.
Which people are like, I don't know if that's really a winning.
It'd be a win to me, bud.
Yeah, cheapest Buffalo Trace bourbon. Yeah.
Least expensive.
Yeah. But don't forget, Buffalo Trace also makes Fireball.
Worst expression from Buffalo Trace. Sean says no.
Jess keeps joking with me that we should do an April Fool's bourbon, but the bottle I have at home that would work for that is God, it's so bad. I don't even want to do it as an April Fool's. It's an American whiskey and it's just bad.
Yeah. Well, let's not do that.
Yeah.
Veto. All right.
But I got to get rid of it.
Cool. Make a cocktail, man.
The last time I actually did anything with it, I poured Pepsi in it, and I rarely drink pop, but
Ruined the Pepsi.
That was the only way that I could actually drink any of that whiskey. It was so bad.
All right. Disengage. Welcome back to the Bourbon and BS podcast, everyone. This is episode 209, part 2, Beyond the BS. This is going to be broaden. Yeah, but broaden your horizons is the topic. And that topic actually came straight from Ray.
Oh.
So Ray and I were talking about his trip here to the U.S. here soon and hopefully coming to not only the garage, but maybe the Smoking Tent event, which is through one of our sponsors, Tinderbox at Easton in Columbus, Ohio. That's going to be March 19th. Ray, if you make it there, you will be the furthest traveling attendee.
Yeah, that might set a record.
I was going to say, like, Bobby Hirschman's talking about coming from Philly. You know, I mean, that's far too.
Well,
it's not that close.
But,
I mean, it's still, but I mean, like,
we've
Vietnam,
got one guy that's coming from Atlanta.
Yeah, Brad, yeah.
Yeah.
Anyways, yeah. So broaden your horizons is the so Ray, you better be on here, and if I haven't seen him lately, so I'm gonna have to message him and say you better get a part of this here, bud.
Well, when you asked people what they were drinking, he chimed in and said coffee.
Did he?
Yep.
Maybe we're not. Oh, there he is.
Because it is morning in Vietnam.
Oh, there he is. Ray, can Sean get me any cheap domestic flights? Nobody can get you a private jet.
Ray's asking if he gets extra goodies for being the furthest travel person.
Sure. Vietnam to Columbus. What do you got? Actually, to Seattle, I think is where he's flying in. Or Seattle to CMH. 100 G's. Cool. All right. Yeah, Sean, you need to come up here for this 10 event. What are you doing down there in Tennessee? Whatever. Yeah, I forgot that you weren't coming yet. All right, so Beyond the BS, broaden your horizons. This is one where I'd love to have Ray be a part of this. I should have tried to get him on remotely, but I don't think he'd do it. Ray, if you want to do it, I can get you on. We just do a quick audible here. I'll get you on the screen. If you want to be a part of this one and you have a good connection, you're not just like talking into an iPad on your patio, we'll get you on here. We're still smoking, I think, both of us. Yeah, La Mission from L'Atelier. This is one that we reviewed in part 1. So check that out in part 1 if you guys have not listened to that, or if you are interested in our review and talk about that cigar and that company. Also, we're drinking Elijah Craig Barrel Proof A121 batch, which is the 3rd release of 2021. First release. Jeez, I got that wrong the first time. First release. January of 2021.
Yep.
My mistake. It is barrel proof, 123 and some change.
0.6.
12 years old. We've been enjoying that. Listen to part 1 on our thoughts of that bottle. Thanks to Jim Johnson. Like I said, great things going on with him. And I'm not trying to plug his thing. This bottle is not from the company, but I will say that he's got that Corcoran
Global Living, which is going to be a huge thing for the Columbus and Ohio area. So happy to see that expanding and people in the community doing well. So congratulations to Jim and everyone involved in that project. And thank you again for the bottle here from Jim Johnson. I'm going to keep enjoying that. All right. Broaden your horizons. I didn't know where this is going to go. If it doesn't go well, Ray already says I can blame him on that, which I don't think we're going to have to. But I did actually put in the comments kind of when I asked him, I said, what do you think about this? And this is something for you guys out there. You can always email as well, bourbonandbspodcast@gmail.com. Or you can just comment on the community page, or you can just reach out to message the Instagram or the Facebook page or whatever you want to do, or just myself or Nate. If you guys have any topic suggestions, the community page is probably the best way to do that, just because it gets that conversation going here. But he said, I opened it up with, how wide is your scope? But he said whether it be simpler things like trying new foods, activities, experiences, people, or otherwise, sometimes we need to broaden our scope and open up a little bit.
And I said, is this always beneficial, or can it turn around and be something that hinders you? We had a couple other comments here, but Nate, what do you got on this? I know you had some comments as well, and I'm trying to pull them up on my notes here from earlier on.
Yeah, I had a comment. No, I think a lot of times when people talk about broadening your horizon, like we think of the real easy stuff, like food and stuff like that.
Traveling.
Traveling. But like I remember over the course of last year, you talked about there's a lot of people out there right now that they want to travel. They want to go to all sorts of places. They have a $35,000 a year job, but they want to travel all over the world and take a vacation every month. It's like, that's not how this works. Like, it's great that you want to do that, but I think, broadening your horizon, like, I think you should start, like, what are some things that you can do where you are now that broaden your horizon? And so something that popped into my mind is like just opening yourself to new ideas, new possibilities, new schools of thought. Obviously, that's been a hot button topic with you over the last couple of years.
New schools of thought,
or leading up to the last election. I know that was something that you talked about quite a bit. Was because you're one of those people that you don't listen to just one side of it. Like you follow the people on the right, you follow people on the left, and you're just seeing what all's out there and taking it all in. Because,
you try to bring it in,
because everyone, both sides are going to have stuff that's right and wrong, so you can't take just one side. But no, initially, the first thing that comes to my mind is, people who know me was food. A specific one was, when I was younger, my stepdad wanted me to try certain vegetables that I knew at that time I did not like.
Yeah.
It's like, for example, at the time, I did not like broccoli when I was younger. Could not stand the taste of it whatsoever. And so he would incentivize me to try broccoli.
Okay.
Like, he would reward me if I ate broccoli. Now, looking back at that, eating a baked potato with broccoli covered in cheddar cheese and bacon, probably not the best way to eat broccoli.
I got it. Okay.
And I was rewarded with ice cream. So again, not the best way to go about it. But at least it got me trying it. And then fast forward years later, now I have no problem, throwing in broccoli in the oven and, cooking it in the oven and eating it.
It's odd that you say broccoli. Ray Chester, who's part of it, and he says Nate could open up by trying a vegetable other than green beans with his steak.
It's a science experiment, Ray.
All right.
Don't have time to go.
I get what you're saying. Sometimes you have to actually. I mean, I agree with you. I don't know about the baked potato and the rewarding it with ice cream, but I mean, I remember like growing up, like the vegetables. It was like it's like Brussels sprouts. Well, I don't like Brussels sprouts. Well, if I put a bunch of like cheese and butter on it, it's like, all right, well, it's getting there. You know what I mean? Same thing. Like cauliflower. It's like, hey, there's a bunch of Parmesan cheese on top of it. You're like, okay.
So when I was a kid, my mom, like whatever my mom cooked for dinner, like I had to at least I had to eat what she put in front of me, whether it was something I knew I didn't like or not. So, for example, still to this day, I don't like baked beans. But if my mom made baked beans, I had to eat them. And her rule was if I ate something that she cooked and threw it up, I had to eat it. Again.
To throw up?
Yeah.
You had to eat your vomit?
Yeah. So
Wait, you literally had to eat your vomit?
If I threw it up, yes. Jesus. So I made sure not to throw it up.
What the fuck? I was joking. I thought you'd have to eat that thing again, not the thing you just ate and threw up.
Like, oh no, you got to reheat it. Oh my god. So
child services would be called on that one these days. Oh my god.
So thankfully I never had to deal with that. I mean, but literally,
that's a heavy one there, folks.
But literally, like I was one of those kids that if I was eating something I didn't like, like I had a glass of water in my left hand, my fork or spoon in the right, and as soon as the food went in my mouth, just take a drink and swallow it whole.
I feel like there's a Pandora's box that we do not want to open there. Cindy says that is messed up. Victoria, I don't know if you're listening, but yeah, that's a different one. You turned out well enough. That's good. You know,
but then,
I do not.
But then even as an adult, even as an adult, there were still foods that either by experience or by reputation I didn't care for, but my wife wanted me to try it because it was food that she liked. And so, for example, before I met my wife, I did not care for sushi whatsoever. And then eventually I got to the point where I like sushi. And one time my wife was having a conversation with my dad, and she mentioned that we had sushi for dinner the night before. And my dad's like, wait, you got him to eat sushi? Like, really? Really?
I get it. Yeah.
My dad doesn't like it, but he's like, because I was a very picky eater as a kid. So when my dad's like, really, you got him to eat sushi? What the fuck?
I think you caught everyone off guard with the regurgitated stuff.
And to Cindy, to your question, no, I still do not like baked beans.
Now,
I like green beans. I like black beans. That's it.
What about refried beans?
No.
All right, yeah, because they already look like vomit, so I didn't know if you were into it.
I can't do any Mexican dish that has refried beans. Nope, can't do it. It's a texture thing. But yeah, nope.
Because it's kind of like vomit, which would absolutely trigger you. Sorry. The good news is they look like that the first time. Jesus Christ.
But to my mom's defense, if my mom is, spending her money, because obviously as a kid, I don't have a job. So if my mom is spending her money and time and effort to make dinner, I better fucking eat what she made for dinner. Otherwise, I'm not eating.
Once. Eat it once.
Now, I think she said that to try and scare me.
Did you ever do it? Did you ever have to eat?
Because I never actually threw up. But I think it was something she said to like kind of force
classic
me
scare tactic.
Exactly. To actually try it, and like, well, you better enjoy it the first time.
She was playing chess. It's like 3 steps ahead of you there, man. Cindy says her baked beans have bourbon syrup and brisket. I'm in. Yeah, so Jesus Christ, Sean says, so if they caused explosive diarrhea, did the same rule hold true?
No, that's coming out the other end, you idiot.
All right, let's move on.
Jesus.
All right, so I love how this all turned to food. Now we got all this stuff on. Ray says, get Victoria on. I want clarification on the vomiting aspect. All right. So broaden your horizons. You got the travel thing. The food thing is a good literal one, and it's also a good metaphor because you open yourself up to new experiences, different cuisines. Ray in his original comment that he made to me, and then also on the Facebook page. If I can pull that back up here, I'll just pull up his message. But it's about the different cultures. We've talked about that and everything with like the when he talks about the U.S. and things like that. But I mean, sometimes broaden your horizons. You brought up the fact that I try to, or especially during 2020 and after, trying to listen to different viewpoints on things. Otherwise, you're going to create that echo chamber. Otherwise, you're going to eat the same thing over and over again. Cigar wise, you're gonna smoke the same thing. To bring it back to like the part one aspect of this is that when people come in, it's like only like mild cigars, and you just stick with that. It's like, well, what have you tried that's not necessarily considered mild? I mean, these are those types of things that there might be things out there that you would enjoy, but you never give yourself the opportunity to do so. That could be a food thing. It can be a travel thing. It can be a lifestyle thing. It can be something as simple like cigars, whiskeys, spirits. Oh, I don't like wine. What have you had? Well, I had a white Zinfandel. I hated it. It's like, well, there's so much else out there. You know what I mean? There's so much. Like, I don't like whiskey. Like, what have you had? Well, I've had Jack Daniels, and it makes me gag. It's like, well, again, there's so much else out there. If you want to put the effort into it, you might come across some of your new favorites. Yeah, Ray, did you feel differently about cigars? Asking me after your first trip to Cuba. I always liked a bit of the Cuban tobacco, but never really compared to like Nicaraguan and stuff that I, in a sense, grew up or grew into smoking. Going to Cuba, yeah, there's a little bit of the travel aspect. That was amazing. I'm glad I actually did that. I was very hesitant to do that for various reasons. Small part of it was like financially, because I took another vacation that year, literally a month before that. So I was doing back to back, which for me, that's a lot. At the time I was on my own. So it was like, taking 2 trips, one to the DR and one to Cuba in July and then August. That was a lot of travel and a lot of financial, spending there. But I was happy to do it because I learned a lot about that trip. And then when it came to the Cuban cigars, it was something that I saw a completely different aspect of the industry that I'm a part of and I love. And that was exactly not only being at the Casa del Habanos, at different ones that I was introduced to by way of Mark and Brad and some of the people down there, but it was also going out to the farms and seeing that aspect of it. It's like, yeah, it opened up my eyes to what different types of cigars were out there that I hadn't experienced. Now, it wasn't necessarily
that the first farm you had been to outside of Connecticut.
Yes.
Okay.
First one. So, I mean, that was, it was definitely a good experience. So, I mean, there is a part of the whole traveling aspect of it is that it's fun to do that, to see that. But again, you have to do it in a smart way. I mean, that's not something where you want to like go into massive debt just to travel. But I mean, I think that a lot of this stuff is that it can open up your eyes to different experiences, things that you didn't realize or you were hesitant. Talking about food, I grew up with food allergies, so that definitely kind of kept me on a smaller scope. I've tried different things and I've enjoyed them. I still don't go crazy with trying just anything, but it is nice to do that because again, you think you like something and that's all you like, but then you try something else like I really like this is really good. And now you have a new favorite, something that you really enjoy. Lifestyle is kind of the same way. I think there's a lot of different parallels through all of this stuff. I mean,
so when you travel to the DR and Cuba back to back, like were there local cuisines that you tried?
No. So in all fairness, full disclosure, like the DR was all inclusive. That was more of like,
okay, you
could be anywhere. You know what I mean? Like there was some stuff. Jamaica, I think I experienced a little bit more because we went off resort a couple times. My 2 trips to Jamaica, years apart, but I mean, we went off resort, so I saw a little bit of the country a bit more. DR, it's like literally like airport, go to the resort, back to the airport, back to the States. It wasn't really visiting the country.
My trip to the DR, I was not at a resort.
Well, that was when we were with the cigar company, so you saw a little bit more of that.
Yeah, but I want to say that trip to the DR I had 8 years ago. I want to say that was the first time I'd ever gone to a pig roast because that's what we ended up having for lunch one day. Is they just set this giant hog right on the table and you just picked right off the carcass.
Yeah, I don't like that. Sean, go ahead. What do you got there?
Finally done working a little bit, so I wanted to just chime in here.
Appreciate that.
So Broaden Horizons, when we went, most of the people here now know that we adopted our daughter from China.
Right.
So we spent 2 weeks there, and you talk about kind of broadening your horizons, no matter whether you want to do it or not, it kind of happened that way. The one interesting thing in Beijing, we went to Pizza Hut, and they had some different combos. and all they had on the menu was just pictures, and you had to point to them because no one spoke English. So that was, and I think they had a McDonald's, but it was a little off. But most of the time,
we have that here now, by the way, for people that speak English.
Really?
They literally just point at the menu.
Yeah, but when there's it was
5.
Yeah, it was interesting though. But what was really cool though is we did a lot of tours before we met our children, and so they took us like in this really rural areas and would meet a family, and they would show us around, and they'd have a meal, and they'd have those giant things laying on top of the table. I forget what it's called. Like they spin around and they put all the food in the middle.
It's like a lazy Susan.
Yeah, there you go. And but they would have the normal dishes, rice, and certain kind of like certain things that you can recognize, but other ones you're like, I have no idea. And they would pass around some kind of It was some kind of liquor, and I think they called it like lightning in a bottle. And man, it was woo.
Got you going?
Yeah, a little bit.
Hot like the Elijah Craig barrel proof we're sipping on tonight.
Yeah, and then some. It was different. But now that Molly
Chinese moonshine.
Now that Molly's getting older now, they are a lot more interested in eating the foods from where they're from.
Yeah.
So they go to Saraga, which is down the street here. This is an Asian market.
Okay.
So they come home with a lot of different things. I mean, I come home sometimes, it smells like a Chinese restaurant because they're making some shit I've never even seen before. But man, it's like they have they are embracing their culture, which I love.
Yeah.
And so we're coming across things now that are like, oh yeah, I did see that in China, or oh I didn't. And then we're finding there's actually a few Chinese restaurants in Columbus. There's one called Helen's Asian Kitchen. It's off of after 161 and 71, where the Continent used to be. Right off that exit there, but they have like off the menu, like legit, you can order shit that you've never seen. Like you can get your normal stuff, but you can get some things that like you'll see a lot of people from like Chinese people there eating that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And Molly,
more authentic.
Yeah. And Molly digs right into it. I'm like, some of that shit I'm a little weird, but man, they go for it, man. So
I think broadening your horizons, sometimes there's a little bit of pressure there too. You know, you talk about some of those foods and like you're talking about like pig roast, like, you know, I look at like seafood. I was never a big seafood thing because, you know, it was just like, I don't know. I enjoyed like shrimp and stuff like that. But again, like as a kid, you know, like popcorn shrimp, it's like basically just fried and
breaded.
Yeah. You're just like, all right, whatever.
It's American.
Then I had an allergy. Like I had a reaction to shrimp. And so then I've never had an allergy test, but I was like, all right, so we kind of concluded, much like people do today with the current COVID situation, they just kind of like make up their own like opinions on stuff. Is that all you do is like, I was like, all right, now I'm allergic to like shellfish, so I don't eat any of it. And then it's just kind of like, I'll just steer clear of all seafood. I don't want to see the eyeballs and the, you know, some people like, you know, like, like that's one of those things like, oh, broaden your horizons. Like, you know, like it's people eat it. And I'm like, cool. More for them because I don't want to I don't want to eat the head of this thing.
Like
I don't want it looking at me.
Like in Temple of Doom where they're eating monkey brains.
Yeah, same thing. I don't want to do that. If I don't know what it is, maybe. You know what I mean? Like, and I think you have to be smart when you're traveling and doing this stuff too. Because like, for example, thinking that I was like, I don't know what fish I'm allergic to. And then finally, like of all the trips, we're talking about Cuba. And I was like, we were sitting there and they're like, they kept ordering ceviche as an appetizer. And I'm like, so what is this exactly? It smells really good. And they're like, it's whatever tuna or whatever the fish they had. Basically like not like raw. And you know what I mean? I'm like, fuck it. I just started eating ceviche. I'm like, this is really good. I took like one bite and I just kind of like sat back. And the three guys I was with, they were like kind of like looking at me. I was like,
seeing if you were gonna puff up.
Yeah. I'm like, we good? I'm like, well, you said that they have good health care here. You know what I mean? Like, and Roy, our driver, is right outside, you know, like, so I think this is the time to do it. Right. It's such a bad idea, although it turned out well.
I will tell you though, man,
I liked it. Broadened my horizons, but again, I wasn't looking at the fish yet.
They did have a lot of baked fish there, and it was the whole fish, and then you kind of just pick the meat out of the fish itself. No one really went towards the head or the eyes, but it was pretty freaking good. I mean, usually you get fish, it's already gutted and it's got it flayed out. This you had to like watch the bones, but it was good as shit. It was pretty good.
I don't know what Sean said. I'm sending Steve Crane some Dutch herring, and y'all eat it on the podcast. I don't know if I want that. I
wouldn't do that.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah, you don't want it.
We were the movie Castaway was on, right? You know, Castaway with Tom Hanks, and you know, talking about like the things he had to do out there. And I was like, I don't think I could do it. But like talking about broadening your horizons, like if it's a survival thing, I'll try it. You know,
yeah,
I'll do my best.
Yeah.
But new experiences, talk about that a little bit. I mean, we can kind of broaden this over there, you know, as far as new experiences. Yes, Sean, I'm allergic to peanuts and shellfish, I think. I don't know. Like, whatever. It's probably, I don't know. With like broadening your horizons and doing different experiences, there are some things that I will not do, like skydiving. I'm not going to do skydiving. I'm just not. Bungee jumping also. Apparently I'm going to miss out on that the rest of my life. You know what I mean? People talk about it like, oh, it's so great. I'm like, cool.
And why is that? Because this is something that I kind of thought about that on my way over here.
Why
like,
is what?
Why are some of the reasons, like, what are some of the reasons that there are things that other people do that we very easily could do. What prevents us from doing it?
I don't want to.
I think with skydiving and bungee jumping, it's a fear thing. Yeah, it's a fear of jumping out of a perfectly good airplane, or plummeting face first to earth, hoping that the rubber band doesn't break.
I think those things are exciting, not only for the experience and the visuals you see as you're doing it, but it also is a bit of that, it's the you're scared, right? I mean, there's a physical reaction, in your body that it's like that rush, I mean, that fear and all that stuff.
You have that oh shit moment after you jump out of the plane.
Absolutely.
Which I think it's normal. I think because there's a customer that comes into the tinderbox periodically, that I know he started out like he went skydiving one time because he wanted to try it, and then all of a sudden he's going more and more. And when you start skydiving, you're doing a tandem jump, so you're actually harnessed to a professional skydiver.
Yeah.
But then after you do so many jumps and learn how to control your body in the air and turn and do stuff like that, then you can actually go solo.
Yeah.
And so that particular person, like, there was definitely a fear the first time he did it. But then once his feet touched the ground, he's like, that was actually a lot of fun. And so he then wanted to start doing it more and more, to where now he's actually certified to where he can solo skydive.
I get that.
Yeah, he's probably not going to be like Travis Pastrana and jump out of an airplane without a parachute and then harness onto someone who does have a parachute. But
so I look at that, Broaden, again, we have our limits, right? And you want to test them a little bit. Sean Anderson says, oh man, jumping out of planes is almost as good as sex as long as you free fall for a bit. I mean,
we'll take your word.
There are some bad things that can come from sex, especially if you don't know the partner and you're not using protection. But other than that, I mean, and again, the freak chance that you have a heart attack during sex, which is, as they say, not a bad way to go. But I think that I get what you're saying about the rush at times, and I appreciate you putting sex above skydiving. But I don't know, man. Those are different types of rushes for me.
Yeah, different emotions and feelings involved doing those.
Mm-hmm.
But no, like I think about, when I was thinking about this topic after you sent it to me, and on the drive over here and all that,
yeah.
like I was thinking about what are some of the reasons why I don't try certain foods or do certain activities or whatever it is. And I think for a lot of people, it's a fear aspect. And I run into that like in the job world as well. Like with the positions that I've had over the last decade, like there are certain things that I felt comfortable with. And so I kind of want to stay in that comfort zone. I'm afraid to leave that comfort zone. And that's what prevents me from broadening those horizons.
Well, I think that's a point, here. And Ray actually put it on there, and I'll put it on the screen. Talking about some of that stuff in the job thing is that his biggest aha moment to do with Broaden Horizons was after his first offshore job in China. I was desperate to go home after the first year. I missed everything about home. However, when I got home, I realized that I'd obviously changed a lot after 1 year away. Everything there seemed so small and insignificant. If you're talking about here in Columbus, I'm a little offended and triggered, but go ahead. But taking that step, that leap, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, that is broadening your horizons can actually be exactly what you're talking about, Nate.
It can be a scary thing, but sometimes it's one of those things that you get used to.
Yeah.
Whether it's food or skydiving or, visiting other cultures, like I think a lot of people have resistance to getting over that first hump of actually doing it. And then once they do it the first time, they're like, oh, I don't know what I was so scared or psyched out about. Like, this isn't actually as bad as I thought. And I can actually do this more often.
So I think a lot sometimes. So let's scale it back before we get into the huge life changes. I mean, that's one of those things that I look at is, for example, something that I've talked about before is a year or so ago, a little over a year ago, I went through a breakup and I had to change something. You know what I mean? Because you're talking about that comfort.
Mm.
Well, when things change outside of you, talk about jobs, you get fired from a job. You know what I mean? Like that's now you're stuck with that choice, right? You got to make the decision.
Yeah.
If you were happy before and something changed, then maybe that is something that is a problem and it's tough to do that. Ray saying what prevents you from broadening your horizons? Absolutely comfort a lot of times, or fear of the unknown. I talk about, I've talked about, and this sounds very insignificant in some of the stuff we're talking about, but this is, again, dialing it back. The only thing I felt like I could change in my life and keep it somewhat routine and somewhat comfortable was I changed the gym I went to. Mm-hmm. I've done that a few times and it's something that you stick with that. But I look at that, and again, this might sound very trivial to some people, but it's something where you're doing the same workouts, the same routine, you're going to the same gym, you see the same people, all that stuff. Well, sometimes changing that environment or changing the place you go and the people and the type of equipment you're using, that can spark something in your workouts and your fitness and everything else, where now all of a sudden you get a jump start on something, a new chapter in that part of your life, where everything else is staying the same. This is not as dramatic as anything else.
Did it for you?
So it did what I wanted it to do, where it changed up my everyday life when I was going through a tough point in my life, right? Now a year later, I've been going to this gym and I still kind of think, well, I kind of miss that gym that I was going to. There's more stuff available and things like that. But, these are those things that once you do it once, it's not necessarily easy if things are going well or things go bad that you just jump ship. We talked about that with relationships and jobs before on the podcast. You don't want to necessarily just every time you feel comfortable, you get shaky and you got to stir things up, because all you do is you want that new feeling. You want that thing, you want that skydiving feeling. You want that heart to flutter a bit. You want to feel that scary moment. You know what I mean? I don't want to go that far, but sometimes you don't know what else is out there, as small of a scale as it could be, but you try some new things. You try things, but on the flip side, where, there's things, every time I change women, I get more guns. I don't know. Here comes the health gym, take your vitamins thing.
Well,
no, hang on. No, absolutely. It's funny because, talking about that, I have a narrow span. Ray, you talk about that, but again, it's interesting. And Sean, you're talking about that because I think that's become very apparent these days with, as far as, your scope on a lot of those things, what you know, and that's it. And I think this is a prime example of the fact that people know they're unhappy. They know they don't feel well. They don't know. They know that they don't like where they're at in that part of their world and their life, and they don't do shit about it. So again, I appreciate, you guys, maybe joking about this, but for those that don't listen all the time, I'll say again, this also equates to and brings in some of the concepts that we talk about starting with yourself first. You can fucking jump out of a plane. You can move to a different country. If you don't take care of yourself and you're a fat piece of shit, then you got problems. And all that stuff is not going to fix that. That's my comment on that. I'm not upset about it, but I mean, Sean, Ray, love you guys to death. Yeah, narrow span. I do have a narrow span when it comes to that. You need to do that stuff. You can do all any of the shit that you want to do, as far as broadening your horizons with other things out of your life. But if you don't start with yourself first and make yourself happy and broaden your horizons on your everyday life, then that is your core problem, that you will not have true happiness, in my opinion.
Yeah, I get it.
Yeah. So you're talking about what, the fear, failure and change is, and, Ray says, wow, that will hold you back from life.
I know that, Ray. Trust me. I know that. I had a phone call with a company today, and they one of the questions they had asked me is like, what is it you want to do in your professional career? Like, what kind of jobs do you want to do? And I was like, I have a couple ideas of like industries that I would like to get into.
Mhm.
But aside from that, like, it was hard for me to actually come up with positions or roles or responsibilities, just because I'm kind of one of the, and I get this from my parents. My parents, worked the same job, from the time they were a teenager to the time they retired. Whether it be for the same company or a different company, they at least had the same type of job. And so for me, there's a certain comfort level with working with one employer. So like with my current employer, I've had now 3 different positions with my current employer, but there's at least the safety net of being with that employer. The fear comes from leaving that and doing something else, because it's because of personal experience. Like, I've left a career to pursue something I wanted to do.
Yeah, you did that. You made the leap. Yeah, that's good.
I did make the leap, and it failed, and it set me back. And that experience then triggered a fear that has been there ever since. So that failure is one of the things that does at times hold me back from trying either that same thing again or doing something else.
Yeah.
Because I got into a comfort zone, and I have a hard time leaving that comfort zone because I don't want to have the same failure I did before. And I know that's a negative way to look at it, but that's kind of the realest way that has come into me over the course of the last decade. Is what that did to me and to my family. Like, I don't want to go through that again, so I'm a little bit more cautious now about taking that leap.
Yeah.
I have said that industry and that role that I made that leap to, I would do that again, but this time I would be a little bit more focused on getting in with the right company for that position. Like, at the time, I just went with the first company that offered me the job. Now that I'm in a better place than I was before I took that leap, like, now I'm a little bit more selective about when I make that leap.
So you learn from it, right? So, I got, Ray and Sean saying all this stuff about, the whole striking a nerve thing with me. But I can actually equate this to a little bit of this. All right, so here's metaphor here on that, right? Let me bring it back to that, where they think they struck a nerve with me. It's not that. It's the fact that there's a lot of different paths with all this stuff: career, fitness, health, relationships is a big one. So, for example, with this stuff, with Ray saying, he kind of joked about it. I think, didn't mean to upset you. You live your life narrow and deep. I live mine wide and shallow. Neither is right or wrong. The interesting part about that, and that, just that comment with you and your job there, yeah, you're gonna have fear of that, doing that same mistake again. You talk about, marriage, right? So I know, I'm not going to say any names, but a lot of our listeners out there, myself included, you get married, you get divorced. All right. So, if you think that, that is a problem, just like this with the job, trying something in a career or a field that you like to do, or, you step away from a career and try something else and you go back. It doesn't mean that you never want to get married again. Some people it is. You don't want to be like, I'm going to be alone the rest of my life because it failed. Right. You can make that choice and you can make the best of it. You move to a different area of the country, you move outside the country, like we were talking about here. You get injured in the gym. All right. I worked out, I did all this stuff, and I tore something, and now I'm miserable again. I'm never working out again because it didn't work out. So all of these things, it's one of those things is that I think there are a lot of parallels between all of this stuff, is that it's how you learn from it. And sometimes I'm going to say that if you you take a chance on something and it doesn't work out, well, the other factors in your life, because there's so many moving parts to this, like we've talked about before with you, Nate, with you tried that, it didn't work out with that company. You have these thoughts in the back of your mind, but you also have in the forefront of your mind, you and your wife and your, the family and the family life and all that stuff. It's like, if you tried again, it would be of a different effort. Not only a different company, you have a different mindset. You learn from the previous one. If you just went back into a relationship and you didn't think about any of the mistakes that you feel like you might have made or your shortcomings, and just did the same thing over again, chances are you'll fail again, right? So, I mean, these are the type of those things, broaden your horizons. You gave yourself a chance to do that, whatever the experience is, whatever aspect of your life it is. But you don't necessarily have to be discouraged completely to the fact that you'll never take a chance again.
And that relates to what Jess texted me, because she's watching this, and instead of commenting, she texts me her comments. But one of the things she said is failure is not final.
Failure is actually a great stepping stone.
It can be, absolutely. Yeah, it can be. Because even though that opportunity that I took 9 years ago did not work out, I'm actually glad that I took that chance, because the time I was in that position with that company, I enjoyed doing what I was doing.
Yeah.
And I've said this before, it's been a while. When I took the opportunity with that company, my wife, in her mind, she said, I'm going to give him 6 months. After 6 months, if things aren't going well, he needs to find something else.
Yeah.
But she saw how happy I was doing that job and how much I enjoyed doing what I was doing, that she wanted me to continue doing that. So even after that opportunity did not work out well for me, she still has been supportive of me potentially going back into that industry full time.
Yeah.
In that same type of position, because she knows how happy it made me and how much I enjoyed it. And so she wants me to do something that I'm good at, but also something I enjoy.
Yeah.
But where I'm at now versus where I was 9 years ago, I'm in a position where I can be a little bit more selective. In the last 8 years, I actually have passed up multiple opportunities to get back in that same role in that same industry, because for different reasons, I didn't think it was a good fit.
Yeah.
There were some where the responsibility and the size of territory were not a good fit, or I just didn't click with the people I would have been reporting to. There, just in the phone calls I'd had with the people in that company, it was not a good relationship. And so there was one where I was still doing door-to-door sales, and I had a phone call with a company in that previous industry doing that same type of job, but the person I would have been reporting to over the phone, he and I just did not click whatsoever. So I knew that was not going to be the right fit for me. So even though I would have liked doing that job more than what I was doing, door-to-door sales, it would not have been a right company for me. So I passed on that opportunity. I thanked the guy for his time and the phone call, but I told him over the phone, like, you and I disagree on too much for this to work.
Okay. So it wasn't the right fit. We got some great comments coming in over the live thing. And, yes, I did read that comment in the entirety to Sean out there. And I'm reading some of the stuff Ray saying, failure is part of every program. Show me someone who has never failed. Stepping over the failure and moving on is the only way to grow. Yeah, if things come too easy, you're not really learning a whole lot. Failure is final if your fear of it is too great. I'm looking at all this stuff, and one thing that I'll say about this, broaden your horizons on this topic, right? No matter what the circumstances is that I feel as though you need to remain open.
Yeah.
You need to remain open.
And that's one of the comments I made on your Facebook post leading up to tonight, is being open to possibilities, to ideas, to other areas of thought.
Yeah. Using Nate's example, this is he said he tried and failed, and since that he's been afraid to try again. Yeah, I mean, there is a fear of failure, and especially if you try it and you fall down. This is something that's it's I don't want to say, for the most of us, it's going to be the same thing. If you're learning to ride a bike and you fall off of it, you're going to be scared to get back on it, right?
Yeah.
It's just going to be, it's going to be, you're going to be afraid to get back on it. But I mean, eventually you do, and you're going to succeed. And I think that's something with the failure aspect of it. If we're going to talk about failure, yes, it's going to suck. You're going to have to heal from it. You're going to have to build yourself back up. Sometimes there is an aspect of that, in my opinion, that you have to also look at and be self-aware of maybe why it failed. Is it not a good fit in general? Not you, Nate, with the industry, but I mean, with that kind of a thing, and just in general, if you try something and you keep, if you say it's not a good fit, and it's not a good fit here, it's not a good fit here, well, maybe that industry, as much as you want to do that, the industry itself is not a good fit. The people in the industry, right? So it's like, with you, it's cigars, like you want to do it. Well, maybe that role is not the role to get into, because, maybe there is that diamond in the rough of, yeah, man, I'm going to succeed because we click. Well, yeah, you got to keep putting the feelers out because you're open to it. But I mean, if you keep running those roadblocks, I don't get along with you, I don't get along with you, I don't get along with you. Well, maybe that's just that industry. As much as you'd love to do it.
Yeah.
Someone mentioned, about the failure part. It's like Michael Jordan. It's like, yeah, as a younger kid, growing up as a Chicago fan, I wanted to be better at basketball than I was. I mean, I could keep trying the rest of my life to do it. Gonna go broke and, not play professional basketball ever, because it's just not a good fit for me. Sometimes it's not a good fit. But I do think that, remaining open to things, to the comment that I was supposed to read the whole thing on this, is that what I'll say to that is, you keep doing this, all this stuff. Eventually the story ends the same, right? Talking about like nutrition and taking care of yourself and all that stuff. And it's like, so you quit smoking, but you're still going to die. Cut out. I assume this is just a song at this point that he's quoting here. You do everything right, you're still going to die. It's about the journey. Again, when you look at broaden your horizons, and if you think that broaden your horizons is constantly trying new things that you're afraid to do, you are constantly challenging yourself. Almost sometimes it can be in an unhealthy way. You never have the opportunity to do the other side of it, which is that you enjoy what you are enjoying. It's those people that can't be happy. They won't allow themselves to be happy, right? Things are going well, and this is too comfortable. I need a change. I need to do something else. You know what I mean? That there is that aspect of some people. If you're not happy, or if you feel a drive to do something, broaden your horizons. The healthy way to do that, in my opinion, is that if you've got this urge that you want to skydive, to go to those extremes, if you want to broaden your horizons career-wise, you're in a rut. Well, I can either change what I'm in, or I can change my life. What does that look like with the people involved and everything involved, financially and everything else? Dropping everything just to do something else can work out for you. But if you don't handle it, maybe in a more tactful way, that would be that failure. I don't want people to just strive for failure because they think that that's the first building block to success. You want to seek success, but it's how you handle the failure if it comes to be. And there's a good chance, as you're getting into whatever it might be, broadening your horizons, that you will fail to a point, or it won't feel like a good fit. All right, we'll take another step back then and reassess, and then maybe go from there. You know what I mean? There's a lot of different directions. You know, I've brought this up before on the podcast. The books back in the day, those choose your own adventure books. Remember those when I was talking about that? And it's like everyone out there, and Sean, you know, Greg out there, if you guys ever did and you guys out there, if you ever did the choose your own adventure books, you're supposed to like really like think for yourself, and you're like, what would I do in this situation? I challenge anyone out there, did you actually do it without looking ahead to those two different options out there?
Nope.
You can either do this and you go to page 46. You can either do this and you go to page 126. Yeah, you want to just be like, page 46 is 100% the way I go. But I would venture to guess that there is a vast majority of people that actually looked at page 46 and 120, whatever, and they're like, all right, and they set you up that way.
Oh, this one.
But it's like you want
better,
the careful way of doing things, that you want to like, am I right in my gut? And I think with life, sometimes you do have to take the leap. You do have to take that. And if you fail, sometimes you can, you know, get back up. That whole thing, you know, I love that movie, you know, the Rocky movie where he's talking to his son. And it's like, it's not about how hard you get hit. It's about, you know, what you do when you get hit.
Mm-hmm.
And can you get back up? And I think that is a big part of this.
Yeah.
Sean wants in on that one.
Well, it's about like anybody plays sports, and especially now when I was younger, I mean, I played soccer collegiately and played in competitive leagues. I coached, and when I coached, especially a lot of younger kids, I was fortunate enough to coach in a league that was competitive, because you have a lot of these sports now where everyone's the winner and everyone gets a trophy and
participation trophy.
Yeah, and I don't agree with that, because I went through life having great wins. I had life where I had the worst defeats. My senior year in high school, we played in the state soccer championship and we lost in a shootout. Fucking devastated me. And but I learned from it, and I got stronger from it. I grew from it. And I think a lot of people now, and especially these kids that I had to teach when they were younger, was like, if you know, before they played with me, I think a lot of them had that participation trophy syndrome. And they got better because when we did lose, they were hungrier. They were strong. They were stronger.
Right.
They wanted more. And I think that just goes for anything in life. Because when you fail, whether you fail in sales or anything in life, you learn from that, and you get stronger to prevent it from happening again. If you do, you learn from that and you keep going. And that's what probably made me and the player that I was when I was in my prime. So
well, I think if you always expect a victory, which it's a good mindset to have if you're striving for that, but you have to be able to accept defeat at the moment.
Yeah.
But if that's the turning point where your life is now just you expect defeat, not accept defeat, that's a game changer.
Yeah.
Right. You go out there, you're like, oh, we're gonna lose. That's different. It's different.
Yeah.
But if you keep getting beat up and all that stuff, it's sometimes like, you know, again, you played soccer, Sean. I mean, that's one of those things, is that what I was saying about like, I want to be better at basketball. I was better at baseball, but I wanted to be better at basketball. So I, you know, because Bulls were a dynasty at the time,
Sure.
You know, the Cubs sucked. You know,
Still
so
do.
all right, calm down. We were World Series champs, but 2016. But again, I mean, if you there's also a realization that sometimes that skill set is not yours.
Oh yeah.
So
course.
wanting to do something, you know, you had tremendous skills in that sport, which is fun. But again, that is a limited thing, you know, like, do you go pro? Like, is this a career? Like, can you make it a career? Sometimes you also have to adapt, you know, I mean, like for you, Sean, you know, you were a collegiate soccer player, right? There are paths that you could possibly take of like coaching, or, you know, working on clinics, or, you know, with Molly, if she got in, or if they got interested in soccer, now all of a sudden it's like, now I can take that and I can relive a little bit of this and
Sure.
and learn from that.
And
There are
them.
different teaching. There's different paths you can take with some of your passions on that.
Mm-hmm.
We had a little bit of a grab on when I said the journey is the big part of it.
Sure. Absolutely.
I think, again, not to look at it negatively necessarily, but if you just focus on the journey of this broaden your horizons thing, I need to travel more. I need to try new things. And you never commit to any aspect of your life. Now you're addicted to the journey in a sense, right? So I'm looking at this as that the journey is one thing, but sometimes there are some good things that are happening around you. And if you're addicted to the journey or the next best thing, you're going to have some issues there holding on to experiences, jobs, people that are very good for you and to you and for your life and for your journey, that you're going to push that away if all you're doing is, and I know that's not what Ray meant by this topic of broaden your horizons, because look, I mean, he's right now, he's steps in his life ahead, right? And now he's living in a different country with his now wife, and he's loving life. So eventually, yeah, broaden your horizons. He's got this open mindset that he's open to new experiences.
Sure.
He's open to the stuff about food, you know, places, all that stuff. And that's great to have that mindset. I think that's the big part of this is broaden your horizons should be a training of a mindset that you're open to new experiences.
I think
new people. If you just do the same thing over and over again, that should work for you if it's all good for a finite period of time. But that's not going to be your whole lifespan, because you're going to change. The things around you are going to change. The people around you are going to change, and all these experiences will consistently change. So if you get stuck in that moment and what makes you happy at that point, that person makes you happy at that moment, they're going to change. That job makes you happy at that moment, and I want it for the next 40 years. That's going to change. The industry will change. The people ahead of you or behind you will change. All of these variables, the moving parts around you, will consistently change. So broaden your horizons to me is more just like keeping yourself open and flowing a bit.
Sure.
Being able to adapt and to experience new things and like be open to new opinions, be open to, like we were talking about originally, like Nate, you said, you know, like listen to different viewpoints. You know, again, get out of that echo chamber. And that echo chamber can be not only like opinions on things that are going, like, you know, those the current events, but it's also the echo chamber of, I want this, like that Groundhog Day thing, you know, it's like, I want this day for the next 40, 50, 60 years.
Sure.
Not going to happen. You can do everything you can in your power to do that, but your job will change. The world around you will change. The people around you will change, because they're also experiencing life as well.
A lot of people like to be in a comfort zone, and the biggest thing that most people fear is change. So that's why it's hard for a lot of people to broaden their horizons, because they're afraid to make that step or take that change, which is unfortunate, because I think with Molly, now that they're older, like Teresa and I and Molly, we're traveling a lot, and we're actually going out there and doing shit, you know, and giving Molly an experience of seeing what they can see out in the world and out throughout the country and what it's all about, and make memories. And I hope that they pass it on to their kids. So
what are you going to say, Nate?
Well, and I think, so the sports metaphor that we've talked about, like sometimes even when we're having success, if we're not open to change, we can, like, not being, even when things are going well, not being open to change can lead to failure. So when you talk about sports teams, teams have to have a game plan for each opponent. Just because you've been on a winning streak doesn't mean you can go into the next game with the same game plan as before, because your opponent may do things a little bit differently. And you sometimes you get into that mindset, like if you're on a winning streak, you may just go into the next game like, you know what, we haven't lost this season, like
same game plan.
We're good. Like we don't need to do anything. We don't need to do anything different. We don't need to work as hard, because we're just better. But we've seen those times in sports where the team that was the underdog won just because something happened during the course of that competition, to where they took advantage of a situation, or things just worked out in their favor. Like they were taking risks while the other team was being more complacent. You know, someone went for it on fourth down when someone else was punting, or, someone was aggressive on the base path instead of just waiting for the next batter to hit a home run. Like, you can do things within the game to try and put yourself in a better situation. You can't just go into every situation with the same game plan as the game before.
Well, for those with the sports metaphor, right? So, like, what about watching tape, right? When you're going up against the next opponent, right? You know, Sean, you were talking about being a soccer, player in collegiate level. Not only do you watch tape on the team you're about to play, right? That's part of it, right? Between games, you want to watch tape. You want to learn about that team you're about to go out against, but you also watch tape on yourself. These are those types of metaphors, again, that people talk about, like sports being a good metaphor for life, is not only do you necessarily look at your next opponent, like you're talking about, if all we're going to do is the same game plan over and over again, kind of like if you live your life the same way over and over again, that's okay. But you also have to look at your own tape. You got to look at like what you did, what your mistakes was. Where did I, like people like to look at their golf swing. They look at, their shot. They look at their swing. They look at these things, all that stuff. It's like, how can I get better? Now, I will say again, I want to introduce this whole thing again, where we're talking about like, if all you're doing is the next best thing, growing up, like pitching in baseball, one of the biggest mistakes that I made as a pitcher is if I wasn't feeling it, again, because you at a core, you're doing your thing, right? But if you can't find the strike zone, you're trying to do it, you focus on your delivery. When am I releasing the ball? Now all of a sudden you're in your head. Mm-hmm. I think that's part of it, is if you're constantly just beating yourself up and you're blaming yourself, like broadening your horizons. I'm not putting myself out there enough. I should take more trips. I should eat more different food. I should do all these things. I should do. Now you're just focusing on what you can do differently, as opposed to what do I do well? What do I actually enjoy? And what can I actually build off of my strengths and bring in some new experiences to really excel? There has to be some appreciation for what you do well and what you appreciate. If there's no self-reflection, there's no self-realization of what you do well and what you enjoy, then that is where all you're doing is looking for outside factors to fix your happiness in life. What do you got on comments there?
No, my wife had texted me about her experience in the OSU marching band. Like, you wouldn't think about it, but like, they watch tape every single Monday. Every single Monday they watch tape, and they have section leaders that are watching the people in their section, and like, they're sitting there nitpicking every single thing because they don't want, because if you do something wrong, you don't want to just brush it over like, that's okay.
Yeah.
That's okay. Like, you want to learn from that. And so that's why they sit there and point it out. Like, the people in the stands may not see what went wrong with that play or that performance, but when you go back and you watch tape, you know what it was you were trying to accomplish. So you have a little insider information. So you're a little bit more, you'll critique yourself more than outside people.
Yeah.
Because you have an expectation of what it is that you're trying to do. And so, even in band, when they would fuck up, like, there was a penalty for that. Like, they had to do something as a penalty for messing up, even in marching band.
There's accountability there. Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah.
And it wasn't to try and tear that person down. It was to try and encourage that person to do the things they needed to do better the next time out.
Yeah. So Sean had a great, not you, Sean, in the garage, Sean out there in the audience. Both great people, both great viewpoints and comments. Perhaps the best way to broaden your horizons is to learn to love the process, not the results. So I think the results. So in response to that, it's a great point there, Sean. I think sometimes the results should be the goal, but the results are maybe a letdown. So loving the process and keeping your mind focused on some of the wanted results or your goals is what they would be. And there's that saying, I don't always like it, but I think this context of the conversation is that there is a level of embrace the suck. Yep. that hasn't been introduced in the comments or on the show tonight, is that sometimes, like, the process, it's not, again, don't look for the failure as like, oh, I got to fail because then I'll succeed, and then you sabotage yourself. You know what I mean? I'm not saying like, don't beat yourself up to a level of depression that you embrace the suck in that way, but embrace the suck as the process, like he's talking about.
It kind of,
Sean, you're asking about your son. I'll put it up here, and I want some more clarification on this. So I'm going to introduce this to the conversation here. He said that my son won the NCAA Division I College World Series because he was willing to pay the price life set for him to get there. My other son didn't play college basketball because he was unwilling to pay life's price. I want some clarification on that. That's I think I know where he's going with that, but if you're at this, so I want to hear what he has to say about that.
And to bring it back to another sports metaphor, a few years ago there was a Major League Baseball broadcast where it had.
I love how it's gone full blown sports.
It's easy for some of us, but it was
a couple of dudes in a garage smoking cigars talking about sports now.
It was Pete Rose, Alex Rodriguez, and Frank Thomas, and someone asked Pete Rose about what he did when he would get into a slump. And he's like, well, first off, you never admit you're in a slump, but like over time, you'll develop a pattern and you make a change based on those patterns. And he goes, if fastball's getting to you, you move back in the box. If you're not getting on the curveball, you move up in the box, or you move closer to the plate, you move further away from the plate, you choke up, you choke down. He goes, but you never change your swing because your swing's what got you to the big leagues. So you keep the core of who you are and what got you there, but then you just make these small tweaks that then will lead to success.
Yeah.
Because we talk about it like in baseball, if you're for the life of your career, you're successful 30% of the time, like that's a Hall of Fame type career.
Not a good metaphor for life, by the way.
No, yes.
If you succeed at 30% of your time, your efforts.
Yeah, the rest of us.
You got to change some shit.
Yeah. If you're 30% successful from the free throw line, you're not going to be on the team much longer. But that's also.
If you get fired from 70% of your jobs,
you might want to.
You should change your swing.
Yeah,
your swing is off.
But that's also based on like what is the normal success rate for a person in that position.
I know.
If you're a baseball player and you're batting 100, now you got to make some changes. You got to make some significant changes because in the terms of what's average, you suck.
Yeah.
I found out in my year-end review recently that I had the highest closing percentage of cases on my team.
Mm-hmm.
And I was sitting there going, really? Now, it turned out there could have been some things I could have done to be able to close out cases quicker and have a higher percentage. But when my manager told me what my percentage was, I was like, really? That's the best on the team? Like, what the fuck is everyone else on my team doing?
Well, you can't compare. Like, you can't compare yourself to other people, but other people will compare you to other people.
I was comparing that number to myself.
Right.
Because my manager told me what my percentage was, and that was just in 6 months in that position. In my previous position, if I'd had that same level of competency or success, like I wouldn't have been in that position as long as I was.
Yeah.
So obviously, things change based on what is expected of you, but I
want to get back to this here.
Go ahead.
Not to cut you off. I think you made some good points there. And so going back to the comment about the Suns, right? More clarification. The work and the process they had to do to get there.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So this is something there. And then the other comment was commitment and sacrifice. Well, Sean clarified and he said, his baseball player that succeeded, he had broadened his horizons and trusted the process to get him to his goals. The other just thought he should be able to get to those goals because he was a better than average basketball player in high school. So when one asked to get better, I told him what to do and helped, but he did the work. The other listened, but just chased girls in video games. So I think that is something that, again, if you rest on your laurels and you think everything's going to go well, that's what I was kind of talking about, is that the things you do, and you don't want to change anything about you, but everything around you is going to keep changing. That's the parallel or metaphor for life, is that if you're peaking and you want to stay in that moment, well, if you continue down the path of life, it's not going to do that. Like, it's not going to follow your bubble of a window. Everything else is going to keep progressing. If you don't and you stay stagnant, which is that broaden your horizons. Sometimes broaden your horizons is not traveling to a different country. It's not trying a new food. It's literally you widen your scope on what you're allowing to be an input into your mind, your body, and everything else. You have to keep learning. We talked about that again with the shit that went on in this country worldwide in 2020, 2021. If all you did was you kept your focus and you stayed in that echo chamber, very, very angry people, because everything around them was constantly changing. And if you didn't actually allow more input, you would not grow. You just wouldn't. You'd stay stuck in that moment. And you'd be angry. You'd be bitter. You'd be upset. You would be very short-sighted because you stopped learning. I look at the broaden your horizons side of it, is that you really have to really broaden your horizons. Is a great metaphor for not only just trying new things and all that stuff, but just, again, opening yourself up to experiences, opinions, conversations, people, all of those things that you can actually grow.
Yeah.
And I think that's the big part of it, is I think that Ray offered this topic, is that you wanted, like, staying open is about growth.
So I mentioned it briefly before. When I was in high school, I did a cross-cultural trip to rural South Carolina.
Mm-hmm.
Now, for someone like Ray, who's from the UK, he may not realize that going from Columbus, Ohio to a rural community in South Carolina is much of a cross-cultural trip because it's within the same country. But I can tell you that what I saw there was very different than what I was used to here in Columbus.
Sure, yeah.
I mean, even within Columbus, you can make a cross-cultural trip by going to certain areas within Columbus. But doing that trip and helping out some people that were down there, it made me appreciate what I may have taken for granted here, because I didn't know anything else was out there. And it also then made me, it also produced somewhat of a drive to want to do better, because I saw that there were people who were not as fortunate as me, and going there and helping them out. The things, the little things that made those people happy are things that we would take for granted.
Yeah.
And so it made you appreciate what you had, but also not settle for what you had as well. It produced a drive to where, it made you think about what you have. And it's like, yeah, most of the people around you that are in your circle, that live in your same community, they all have that. So
they do. This reminds me of something that I had a conversation with someone. I think I brought it up once on the podcast before. This was around the holidays, and I was talking to someone that I didn't know very well, but her and I actually went to the same college at Miami in Ohio, right? Which is, at the time, I assume it still is, it's predominantly white, middle class, upper class, right? But there are other people in different demographics that go to that school. Where I can appreciate the opportunity to go to that school. At the time, I didn't appreciate it, but I look at the experiences now and people I met and all that stuff. This person had a different viewpoint, where she looked at it as like, I don't want my kids to go to Miami. And I said, do you remember this story? Did I talk about this?
I don't remember it.
So I was like, well, why is that? You said you had a great experience, and look at you now. Like, you traveled abroad. You went after college. You did this. You did that. She married someone that was from Ireland. You know what I mean? Has this really broad scope now. She took the lesson as, I don't want my kids to have this narrow-minded way of looking at things and going to this college. I want them to go somewhere where they are challenged immediately. And trying to talk to someone like that, I appreciate that viewpoint. You know, like try to like expand to their children that I want you to learn what I learned earlier. But when you try to talk to someone that's broaden your horizons, they're like they're not forcing, but pushing their offspring to learn earlier. And I'm like, do you love your life right now? Well, yeah, I love my life because I did all this stuff. And where did you go to college? I went to Miami. And I had this narrow-minded experience, but it was a great experience, but it was narrow-minded at the time. And where are you now? Well, I love my life. What the fuck is that stepping stone? What's wrong with that? It was almost like there was this hatred to that moment in her life. And I'm like, that made you, and it wasn't because you hated it and that's why you went to all these things. That gave you that opportunity. There was like this guilt there. And I was like, why? Like, it's like, why do you, like, you can broaden your horizons. But again, if things are going well, don't sabotage your life just so that you try new things. And or to your kid's point, I had a real comfortable life getting up to this point, and then I had these opportunities and I did all this stuff. Now I want you to do it at 18. Like, calm down. Like, you turned out great and you love your life. You love that moment in your life. You love this, and you learned that, like, because you had that experience, you have a contrast of other things you learned. If all they do is have that contrast without having that moment, is it going to be the same experience? Or are you going to embrace the suck to a point that you want them to embrace the suck and that's all they know?
So I had a conversation kind of like that to a mother in a church I used to go to. Her daughter was in my Sunday school class, and she was going to send her daughter to the same college that I graduated from. And she's like, hey, you know, my daughter's looking at going to where you just graduated from. What do you think? And I went, don't do it. And the reason was, I know the struggles I went through dealing with that university and what was around.
Yeah.
I knew her daughter was not going to be able to withstand what was going to happen at that college like I was.
I got you.
She wasn't in a position to be able to withstand that and hold on to, you know, what her mother wanted her to hold on to.
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, and I didn't just say like, no, don't send her there. Here's why. And I told her, here's all the things that go on with this school. This school promotes themselves as this, but when you actually go there, they are not that whatsoever.
I get that.
And so it was more of a protection for her child. Like, if you want your child to experience things and experience a certain culture, there are better places to do it.
Yeah.
I was, because of my background and my bringing up, like, I did not lose myself in college, but her daughter would have.
So I get it. And, you know, Ray, you commented, you know, she's seeing it from a very different perspective at this stage in her life. We all look back like that. We don't want our kids to follow our path. I get that. I guess there's two sides of it. And again, I have a very narrow, like you said, you know, and other people, like, you know, again, being a white male growing up in the suburbs, it's like, I was different from a lot of the kids that I went to school with, where it's like, when I turned 16, I didn't get a car. You know what I mean? And which,
did I?
No, I know, but it's like, I look at it as like, again, with this type of thing, it's you can either push them in a positive light. You know, again, it's not about giving participation trophies like Sean was talking about earlier. It was like, the fact is like, you got to work hard, but if I can show you the path for success, I'm going to do that. But sometimes it's, if you've succeeded in life with the sometimes good experiences and then you experienced other people, I just don't want it to be, again, I'm of the opinion, and I'll say this, and we can kind of roll towards the closing of the show here, is that you can teach lessons, but don't force them. I don't want you to force Like, you got to always succeed. You always have to be at the top. You always have to do this. Like, that's one thing to push them to succeed and to push yourself to succeed. But it's not always easy. But I don't know. There's no right way to do it. You know, it's like when I look at that example I was talking about with the person I was talking to, it almost frustrated me to the point I'm like, you're so happy with your life, with the steps that you went through, and even with your experience at like Miami, where it was like you had a good experience, but it's like, I want to have this failure. I want to have this struggle. So you did just fine. So if they want to go to a school that's a good school, they get a good education, but they're not struggling the whole time, that's okay. I don't think that you have to force the failure.
Yeah.
Let them learn to a point on their own, but it's like, it's not necessarily, I don't know. It's not giving them the easy way out, but I just look at it. It's like, it's so ironic to me is that someone that loves their life and then they just hate this point in their life because it was like a good point. Like, things were too good. And like, calm the fuck down. Like, it got you to that point where you were able to experience other things in your life. I don't know. I look at it that way. It's frustrating.
I also think and I'll put this as part of my closing remarks.
Go ahead.
I think it's also part of, the vehicle that you are.
Yeah.
Based on your upbringing, you're a certain type of vehicle on the road.
Yeah.
And it's okay to stay within your road for what you're built for, but it's also okay to take a different path, but you got to be equipped to handle that path.
Yeah.
For example, Steve, you have a Cadillac. Your Cadillac is great driving down the highway. It's a great cruising car on the way to Nashville or Louisville.
Yeah.
Like you and I went on, but it sucks off-road.
It's not an off-road. It's got all-wheel drive.
It's got all-wheel drive.
Great in the snow. Great in the snow.
It's not a great off-wheel car.
Not taking it into the mountains.
On vice versa, someone who's got a 4x4 pickup, great for off-road. Probably not necessarily the smoothest ride, best gas mileage on the on the highway. What are you built for? If you're built for the highway, like, it's okay to stay on the highway or surface streets. If you want to go off-road and take a different path, you have to make changes to be able to withstand the challenges that come with that different path.
Agreed.
When I made certain changes in my life, I made those changes trying to be who I was already.
Yeah.
That did not produce success. And I needed to be a different type of person in order to have success with that.
Yeah.
And I didn't make those changes, and that's why that did not work out well for me. But now I have made some changes as to who I am to where I can succeed on a slightly different path. And I've gone a completely different path than what I did when I graduated college.
Yeah.
Doing what I do now is not what I thought I would have been doing when I was 18 years old. But I have made changes to adapt to the path that's ahead of me. I'm not making drastic changes and going off road and staying exactly who I am. If I want to make changes to my path, I know there are things I've got to do differently.
Yeah.
If I want to try new things, if I want to, try new cultures, I can't do that from my couch in Columbus, Ohio. There are things I have to do and change in order to be able to make that trip and that journey and be open to that experience.
Yeah.
Because if I sit there and I say, hey, you know what? I want to visit Vietnam. I want to visit Ray in Vietnam, and I want to learn about Vietnamese culture. If I just go there, but I'm completely closed-minded to what's going on around me, and I just, say, hey, Ray and I just hang out at a cigar shop every single day that I'm there.
Probably not the normal experience in Vietnam.
Probably not.
Much like me in Cuba.
Yeah. But like, if I were to go to Vietnam and visit Ray, and every single day Ray and I just go to different cigar shops or bars, and we just drink scotch and smoke cigars. Did I really experience the culture of Vietnam?
He's just no fucking way, Nate.
I know Ray doesn't want me. That's okay.
Oh, that's not what he meant. Kind of like Chicago. It's like if I go visit relatives, or you go to like the Magnificent Mile and you just spend a shit ton of money at all those shops. Not all of Chicago does that.
No.
I'm just going to say same thing.
But I mean, so like if I were to make a trip like that, like you don't make a trip halfway around the world to just be in your same bubble,
right,
and do what you do here.
Right.
That was one of the things that drove Jess nuts when I worked in the cigar industry. I'd be out on the road 5 days a week visiting cigar shops, and when I come home on the weekend, you know, on Saturday, just like, all right, what do you want to go do? I'm like, I want to go to a cigar shop and hang out all day.
She's a saint of a lady. I'll tell you that right now.
Yes, she is. But that's not experiencing anything different. That's what I'm doing already.
Right.
That's nothing different. That was just my comfort zone. And thankfully with her, you know, we've done some trips and we've done things that are a little outside my comfort zone. They may be within her comfort zone, but they're outside of mine. But having that person who's comfortable in that with me made it easier for me to do that.
So on top of that, and let me, I think those are great points. I love that it's like you're realizing that. And you also, Nate, you realize that you do have some of those fears of getting out of your comfort zone.
Oh, I know that.
So I think there's always that balance side of it. I'm going to bring it back to that person I was talking to. And you know, Ray, Sean, all the people that have seen the world. What I find so fascinating with all of this, and I'm not saying you don't want to experience those things, and I do realize, and I've had some good conversations with Ray over the years, Nate, Sean, all these people, that is one of those things that I do struggle with sometimes is taking the gambles of new experiences at the cost of the comfort. I'll say this. That person I was talking to around the holidays, right, this last time, that, you know, went to the same school. They grew up here in the Columbus area. Stay with me on this, Nate. Don't comment.
Okay.
Because I want to hear your side of this. So I'm talking to this person. They are talking about that they want their kids to not go through the same things that they went through, of going to a predominantly white school or predominantly middle class or whatever it might be. They want them to go to look at schools in New York, look at schools, that broaden their horizons. Right. She went to Miami. She then traveled abroad because she was able to. She did all this stuff. She worked overseas, I think, for 10 years or whatever. She met her now husband, who was Irish, has these kids, doesn't want them to have this, I don't know if it's an easy path or whatever it might be. They want to I'm almost like forcing this broadening horizons because she is happy with her life. Where do you think I was having this conversation of where she lives and currently resides, where her husband is a proprietor of a business for a living? Where do you think this conversation? You think it was in Europe? Do you think it was in England? Do you think it was in Ireland? Do you think it was overseas? Do you think it was in Vietnam? Where was this?
I'm going to guess it was either in Columbus or somewhere around Miami of Ohio.
It was right next door to Tinderbox at Easton at Fido Irish Pub.
Yep. That's the first thing that popped in my head.
So I don't want to be rude, but I look at all this stuff and I'm like, you're raising your kids in the same place that you were raised. You came back to this place. You're happy with your life. And your husband is a proprietor of a business in this place that you went full circle. And now you're back here. The fucking place that you think is like the worst thing, the worst life for a child to grow up in. Because I want them to experience all this life. I'm like, look at what you're doing. I'm like, it's okay. Don't feel guilty about this type of stuff. The people that are commenting on this stuff, it's like they have, like Sean, Ray, I love the fact that you have a happy life now. It may not be the place you started. You have all these experiences, but those experiences, what I find a lot of times, maybe you have a different geographical location. Maybe you have new views on life. But when it comes down to it, being open to things and trying new things is different than just forcing yourself to get outside of your comfort zone. Because I am of the viewpoint, if you just stay in your comfort zone, you will have shortcomings. Absolutely. But I feel as though a lot of the times for the majority of us is that you want to end up in a comfort zone. That's the goal, is that you're happy with your day-to-day life and that you want to be challenged. And I'm not saying, again, don't just hole up and just be comfortable and don't try new things, because you will have shortcomings because of that. But have that self-realization that the goal is to be happy with the person you wake up next to, or if you just wake up alone, that you're happy when you wake up, you're happy when you go to bed, that it's okay to be happy. If you're just broadening your horizons just to try new things and see new places, that's fine if you're able to do that, but realize that you're just doing that to stay excited.
Well,
and if you're unhappy in your current situation, that's when you need to broaden your horizons. You have to have that, again, self-realization that you're not comfortable. If the fear of the unknown is the reason you don't take chances or you don't try new things, you're not comfortable because you're scared, you're unhappy. It's okay, but you want more. Listen to yourself and try new things. Try a different step in life. Try a different person. Try a different experience. All of those things that we talked about going into this. But realize that you want to get to a point where you're happy with all of those things and you have good memories. But don't sacrifice your current situation if you're happy. You know what I mean? Like, the end goal is absolutely the same. Going back to Sean's comment about the fact that the end result is the same when he was talking about death, maybe. I'm saying the end result is always the same, is that you're striving for happiness, hopefully. And part of happiness is that you wake up comfortable. No one strives to wake up in a third world country that you're looking for your next meal and you don't know where it's coming from. That's not what the goal is. You want to be comfortable.
Well, and to your point with, your friend that you talk to, I think a lot of times with parents, we always hear this, like, parents want their kids to do better or have it better than they did.
Yeah.
And so that may be where your friend might be coming from. I know, like, when I was a, late teenager, early adult, like, my dad, like I said, my dad drove a delivery truck for UPS for 28 years. If I told my dad, like, hey, I want to drive a delivery truck, my dad might sit there and go, that's not how I raised you. That's not why I helped put you through college. Like, that's not what I want for you, because you can do something more. You can do something better.
Yeah.
But yet my dad retired at the age of 55. And, now he just works a part-time job a couple days a week just for golf and cigar money. Like, he doesn't have to work. He just chooses to, in order to be able to, do some extracurriculars. Like, and my dad's got a house in Blacklick. Like, my dad's doing just fine in his 60s, being retired. But he always wants me to, have better and do better. But, the path that I've been on has been very, very different than my dad's. And it may not have the same success or same comfort levels as my dad has.
Yeah. So as we close this out, and there's been some more comments on, in the garage and on the feed, Ray asked this question. And I think this is a good way to round this out. Do you think that 20 years from now that you will regret not seeing the world and having other experiences? I don't know if that was aimed towards me or just aimed towards the conversation as a whole. Nate, how about you? Do you think that 20 years from now that you will regret not seeing the world and having other experiences? That's a pretty broad thing, seeing the world and other experiences can be a lot. But what's your take on that? And we'll round it out. I'll comment after you.
So I've only been to one place outside of the continental US.
He says generally, not at me.
If I went the next 20 years and didn't visit outside the U.S., I think I would be okay with that as long as I visited other places within the U.S. If I spent the next 20 years and never left Central Ohio, then I think that would be a problem.
Mm-hmm.
But I think there are plenty of different cultures within the U.S. that I could visit and learn from and gain experience from visiting.
Okay.
So I don't necessarily have to, travel the world to visit different cultures. I can visit within my own country. I can visit different states. I can visit different areas, even within Ohio, that people live differently.
Sure.
Like when I go and visit relatives for a family reunion down in Kentucky, that's one state away. It's a 3-hour drive, but when I visit down there, it is a completely different culture and experience down there. They don't have.
Why is it different? Greg's asking why is it different?
They don't. I mean, so where my family is from down in Kentucky, it is a very rural Appalachian type of community, and they do things very, very differently. It is a community.
So where you live now, is that a community that you are involved in?
Repeat the question.
So Greg in the audience is asking where I live now. Is that a community that I'm
involved in your community where you live?
Are you involved in the community that you live?
No.
Why? They're involved in their community. Why aren't you involved in your community?
I'm not that involved in the community I live now just because, and I'm not saying this is why I don't. Where I live now is not where I see myself living long term. When my wife and I actually make roots and settle down to a specific, like when we buy our own house and that's where we live, that's where I can sit there and make investment into the community around me.
But you don't want to do that now where you're at?
I'm not saying I don't want to do it now where I'm at.
Why don't you want to get involved with where you're at now? Why don't you want to shake hands?
He's asking why don't you want to get involved where you are now?
Where you're at
So,
now.
so
Steve knows this community right here, his neighbors, things like that. You know what I'm saying? Same.
I know my neighbors on either side. I don't know everyone in the street because where I live, the people that live on the street changes every year or two. Because I live in a street. It's the only street in the entire neighborhood that's duplexes. So everything's rented out. So it's just like living in an apartment complex. You're going to have new neighbors, every year or two. If I was living in a permanent location, then yes, I would take more involvement because I would consider that that's the community I'm investing in. I'm not necessarily investing in the community I live in now because that would be short-sighted, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
If I'm going to spend what little time and resources I have, I want it to be a long-term investment.
All right. Well, I'll play devil's advocate here, and I'm going to read these comments here. How long have you lived at that place?
4 years.
Yeah. All right. There we go. So get after it.
Again, I'm not a big fan of change. Every place I've lived, I've lived
I know.
4 years.
I'm just saying. I'm just saying. Yeah, 4 years is a big part of your life, right? And it could be another 4 years. So Sean says, and he wanted me to read this. Sean Anderson says, when the question I have up on the screen there, do you think that 20 years from now that you will regret not seeing the world and having other experiences? Sean says, and he's been on the podcast before. Sean Anderson, it's a great episode. Ray, I can say, knowing what I know about it and going to places I've been, I totally hate not having done it. Just like eating all the weird, for me, foods I ate in those places. It gives you amazing perspective on what really is good and important. So I will say this to you, Ray, and to this question in general. Do I think in 20 years from now that I'll regret not seeing the world and having other experiences? In the next 20 years, I don't know what parts of the world I'll see. I don't know if it's this country. I don't know if it's other countries. I do have interest in seeing other parts of the world. I do enjoy my life. I do enjoy my comfort. I have my life around me changing constantly, and that's what I was talking about. I am open to it. I am not one of those types of people that I just want to travel to travel. I am absolutely fascinated with seeing other countries and seeing the history there and meeting the people there. I love it. I think I am fortunate. This is not a cop out. I feel like I'm fortunate that I know a lot of people that have done a lot of those things, and I learn from those people. I would love to experience those things, and I do find myself struggling at times to the point where I wish I had the means to travel at will. I would love to go to Europe. I'd love to do a Mediterranean type of a tour. I'd love to go see you, Ray, in Vietnam. I'd love to see, I'd love to travel wherever I can. But to a point, I embrace the suck. Sometimes that I realize that I don't have the means necessarily to just pick up and leave. I don't have the job necessarily at this time that I can just take a week off here, week off there, and just do it. I love my everyday life. That's what's important to me. So do I think that I'll regret not seeing the world? Yeah, there might be a slight regret there that I wish I could have gone to, Italy. I wish I'm sure there'll be a regret there. I didn't go see Ray as much as I wanted to out in Vietnam and see it and have him, see all the parts of the country, even if it is to go see cigar shops and all that stuff. Yes, there's a bit of me that I would absolutely love to do a lot of these things. I would love to do them. I also would love to drive nicer cars, have a bigger house. I'd love to be able to just do what the fuck I want. I'd love to eat whatever I want. I'd love to eat whatever I want and look the way I want to look. Life doesn't work that way. So I look at it as that there are, if it is important to you, if it is a priority, and that's where I get to this, is broaden your horizons, is about, to me, prioritizing what's important to you and what's going to make you happy. At my age now, I hope to be able to do more things. A lot of people actually work their ass off so that when they retire, if they retire, that they stop working. The American dream is a bit that you retire it was 55, then it's 60, now 65, now 7, whatever it is. Now you hope that when you retire, you have enough money that you can do whatever you want and travel the way you want to, and may or may not be able to enjoy it because of your own health. So I look at this as that I would love to do all those things, and I probably could make a career change, life change, sacrifice things in my life to go do those things. I would address this question in a sense. 20 years from now, if all I did was see the world and try other things and not have consistency or happiness in my life and have the people around me, and I'm not that personality type. I'm not that of the disc we talked about before, where it's like, I'm not of the personality type that is the priority over people in my life, the community that Greg was talking about, of having the relationships of people and the consistency of people that I care about, that hopefully they care about me. That trumps the experiences. If I can do both, that's the goal. I am conscious and I am very cognizant of the fact that I want to have both so that I can experience a lot of new things, but that will never be a priority over having meaningful relationships with people on a day-to-day basis. And to be able to wake up in a bed, hopefully next to someone that's important to me, and go to a job that is important to me, that I care about, and I have an influence on people that I care about, whether or not they care about me. My true happiness is not necessarily like seeing new sights, seeing all this stuff. I've got a 4K TV that I can see a lot of stuff. I know it's not the same. I love my trips to Cuba. I love my trips to the different countries, different parts of the US and all that stuff. I embrace the fact that I love the fact that I can talk to Ray in Vietnam, and I can FaceTime him. That is not going to be a comfort zone situation for me where that's all I want. But I have to find a balance. So in 20 years from now, on my deathbed, whether it be 20 years, 40 years from now, yes, I wish I would have seen some things. But on my day-to-day life, if I know that I enjoyed my day-to-day life and I made an impact on people, and I appreciate the impact that people around me made on me, I'm okay with that. I am very happy with that. I don't need to see sights of the world, the 8 wonders of the world. I don't need to see different cultures. I don't need all of that. What I need is fulfillment from the people and the energy around me that really make me who I am. And I find it interesting that, you know, Ray, you found happiness where you're at. Sean, it made you the person that you are today because you saw all those things and you had the contrast of what you want and what you don't want, food-wise, place-wise, whatever it might be. But I love the fact that you have settled down with your family in Tennessee. And when you're traveling the world, doing what you did you want to get back to Tennessee, or did you get to the point where you are now comfortable with yourself and what makes you happy? That's what I strive for. I want to get to that point. I feel like I'm at that point to a point, but I want to continue to challenge myself. And whether that be travel, whether try new foods, whether it be whatever it might be, I want to broaden my horizons first and foremost with the people in my life. That's, for me, the most impactful thing in my life is the people that I learn from and that I enjoy the time with. There's always going to be a prettier waterfall that I've never seen. But if I see it by myself, that's for me. But if I see it with someone else and I have that experience with someone else,
especially someone you care about,
someone I care about, that's where the true enjoyment and the fulfillment comes from. That's the type of person I am. Some people are like that. They just want to see, they want to experience things. They want to be able to tell other people they experience things. But for me, I'm that type of person that I absolutely love the fact that I have relationships with people like Ray in Vietnam, like Sean, that I had the fortunate opportunity to meet through this community that came to my house in Columbus, Ohio, that I've had this garage filled with other people. I've had it filled with people remotely and through the conversation. I love this aspect of it. So you can seek fulfillment, but I think broaden your horizons is trying new things, no matter what it is just taking that turn that you never took down that road. You've never seen those houses, or to travel across the world and do something that you've never done before. I think there's value in all of it. And I think that you need to assess yourself on what actually makes you happy. And that's the whole thing. Broaden your horizons. Don't get comfortable because you have shortcomings, but also realize that what challenges you and what actually makes you tick and grow, that's the biggest part of it. Don't just broaden your horizons just to broaden your horizons and do shit. Make sure it's impactful to you and hopefully the people around you. And with that, I appreciate the conversation. I love you guys out there. Happy Whiskey Wednesday. Thanks for tuning in for episode 209, part 2, Beyond the BS. Cheers. Happy Whiskey Wednesday. We'll see you guys next week.